So why don't we get going? Good evening. My name's Bob Connors. It's 6:01 p.m. I'd like to call the October 15th meeting of the Newbury Conservation Commission to order. Mason, please read the remote open meeting law preamble and take a roll call of members present.
As a preliminary matter, this is Mason Ferret, Conservation Agent of the Newbury Conservation Commission, and I call the October 15th meeting to order and permit me to confirm that all members are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Mary Rimmer?
Yes.
TJ Conti?
Yes.
Mick Brown?
Yes.
Diane O'Brien? Woody Knight?
Yes.
Bob Connors?
Yes.
And Frank Wettenkamp.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. This open meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission, is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. For this meeting, the Newbury Conservation Commission is convening by Zoom as posted on the agenda of the Conservation Commission section of the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. Applicants or the representatives may be called upon to speak and or share information to the screen if able on the fly. We're now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some of the ground rules for effective and clear conduct for our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. The chair will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your microphone, please use earbuds, and please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. Board and committee members should be called upon in first name alphabetical order to ease the process. After the board and committee members have spoken, the chair will afford public comments as follows. Finally, each vote taken in the meeting will be conducted by roll call.
Okay, thank you, Mason. All right, upcoming meeting dates, November 5th and November 15th. I'd like to welcome Frank Wettenkamp back to the commission. Thank you, Frank. And it would be traditional at this time when we have a new member that the board entertains reorganization. I'm a big proponent of sharing the chair with whoever would like to be it. But does anyone have an interest, or does anyone want to make a motion to reorganize? I guess there's no motion, there's no second. So Mary, you and I are stuck.
I nominate you, Bob.
Yeah, I second that.
Expect us to jump into that one, Bob?
Well, you know what? It's part of the process. All right. Well, welcome, Frank. Thank you.
Thank you.
Meeting minutes to review October 1st. Why don't we take a quick look at those and see if we have any comments, corrections, or concerns. Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes for October 1st.
So moved.
Thank you, Mary. Second?
Second.
Okay. Frank, actually you can't because you weren't at that meeting.
Okay, then.
I'll second.
Okay, Mick?
Second?
Okay, all in favor, roll call. Mary?
Yes.
TJ?
Aye.
Woody?
Yes.
Mick?
Aye.
Diane? And I was not at the meeting, so it is approved with 4. Okay, first order of business is a request for a determination. 14 Pine Island Road, applicant would like to construct and add a mudroom and a 2-car garage to existing dwelling and property. Mason, can you provide an overview on this matter for us?
Yep. So this project has already come before the commission, but the applicant is returning to submit a plan with the resource area delineated and also the proposed work to be sketched out in relation to the wetlands and the buffer zone. And with that, I will allow John to share your screen if you would like to.
Hey, John, just give us your name and address and then make your presentation. You're on mute, John, if you're. There you go.
How's everyone doing? I'm John Minell, 14 Pine Island Road. Here to hopefully construct a mudroom and a 2-car garage within the 100-foot buffer, but outside of the 50-foot wetland buffer. I can pull up a plan. I provided Mason with the engineered septic plan at the last meeting because you guys wanted to see further detail. So I think he might have uploaded that onto the portal. I'm not sure. But if you're looking at that plan, that shows existing dwelling 48 feet from the 100-foot buffer zone. And we're going in that direction. But upon completion of the construction, we'd still be well within the 100-foot buffer zone. Let me see if I can pull up. Yeah.
I don't see anything that in
Yeah.
my folder for this project. Am I missing something?
I have John, I have the existing site plan that you gave me. I just don't have the one with the new proposed mudroom and garage. So I can share the existing one if you'd like.
Yeah, I think the one that
You
shows
have
with
that?
where the 100-foot buffer line is, or where it was at that particular date, I think that'd be helpful. Can you zoom in on that, John? And then just point out where the buffer is. Oh, okay. Okay, so the left side of your house is the 50-foot buffer from the. Is that the 50-foot buffer? Or is that?
There's
Yeah,
just-
that's the
buffer
50.
on both sides. There's wetland on
Yeah.
both sides.
Right. Where is the 50-foot buffer on, let's say, the right side of your plan here? Is that?
50-foot would be almost by the front left existing dwelling.
See the
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
dashed
Okay.
line.
Okay.
All right,
It looks
that-
like it's,
So you're outside the 50-foot buffer, but within the 100-foot buffer on the right side wetlands, I guess. Is that, am I seeing this correctly?
mhm.
Okay. Okay. So, and John, what is the, I mean, typically, John, what we would have is a proposed site plan showing the proposed existing conditions, the buffer, and the proposed foundation location.
That's right.
What you're showing is to the left of the existing house, you're going out how many feet towards the 100-foot buffer?
So the mudroom dimensions is 14 feet wide by just shy of 20 feet deep. And then the garage is 26 feet wide by 28 feet deep. So if you take the 14 foot and the 26, it'd be 40 feet off the front left corner. And my measurement on that front left corner existing to 100 would be approximately 48 feet. If that 50-foot buffer, because that's about 2 feet in based off the one inch to 20 feet scale on this site
Right.
plan.
John, can you you had an elevation of your building plan, which gave us a front elevation showing the existing house with the addition?
Yeah.
If you could put that up, I think that might be helpful.
So that was a rough sketch. Based off the dimensions, proposed mudroom here, and then the garage.
Okay.
Let me see if I can get the,
No, I think that gives us clarity pretty much on where you're at, and the hatch line is the 50-foot buffer, correct? Going up.
yeah, the
Just inside
solid
the-
hash line, yep.
Okay. All right, why don't I hold you there, John, and why don't we open this up to questions from the members? Mary, questions on this project, on this RDA?
I think what, we had talked about previously is, that this plan needs to, this is a section of the plan, but we need to, I just guess that we need more context because it doesn't show where the wetlands are or anything. So we just need this information on the existing conditions plan and with the title and date and scale and all that kind of stuff. Because this is this is construction activity. It looks like you're probably going to have to change your driveway as well. Is that right?
Mason, did you scan that engineered plan that I submitted to you? Do you have that access to that one? If you could pull that up, that would show all the stamp dates and the engineer's stamp.
Yeah, that it's just on they're on two separate plans. So I'm not sure that's helpful. We need, a full site plan showing all of the work with the wetlands, with any grading that needs to happen around, any tree clearing, erosion control boundaries. Anything that you're proposing to do to relocate the driveway to access this garage that might be in the buffer zone. So I have just a lot of questions. I don't think that we're quite there yet. This doesn't seem like an RDA to me at all. It seems like an NOI. But I should say that, is this area where the garage is it, do you need to clear to put this in, or is there lawn now, or what is the area?
No, it's just grass, lawn.
It's grass now. I'm gonna just, those are my comments for now, Bob.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So let's move on. TJ, questions for John on this one?
Not questions. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal, but I agree with Mary. We need to see the whole big picture together before we can, with the driveway going in and what does and doesn't need to be done before we can go further.
Okay. So, all right, TJ, I'll go around a couple of times just to see if other comments generate more questions. Woody, questions for John on this project?
I don't really have any questions. It seems straightforward other than what's previously been said, that needs to be on a firmer plan. That's all.
Okay. Mick, any questions on this one? Actually, Mick, you probably have a bird's eye view of this property.
Oh, wrap me out there, Bob, but no, I'm familiar with the property. I'm across the street. And it's my understanding, just based on local knowledge, and Mary probably has the same local knowledge, that this property kind of sits on a peninsula, really, in between two sections of maybe separate wetlands or even connected wetlands. So I think, as Mary suggested, what would be good is to get a kind of a pan out section of this plan that shows wetlands to the east, wetlands to the west, and then the associated 50-foot and 100-foot borders associated with those two wetlands that really do kind of confine the property on the east and on the west. So I think that's important to include in that. And, you know, just for the homeowner, like, provide as much detail as you can, like where your silt barriers are going to be and where your wetland protection areas are. As Mary suggested, where your driveway improvements are going to be, if any. But we really need to see, you know, I see a 100-foot wetland boundary and a 50-foot wetland boundary, and I just don't know which wetland that is associated with. So it's a little confusing to us. And I know you've put a lot of effort into this already, but just those are the things we kind of need to define, like which wetland boundary is it, to the east or to the west of the property, so we can help you, you know, kind of move forward with the project. But really, it's not enough information right now, but hopefully that helps you towards the next step of really getting a detailed, you know, engineering plan together.
Okay, thank you, Mick. Frank,
Yep.
any questions on this one?
You're on mute, Frank.
I'm not familiar with the property. I agree with what's been said so far.
Okay. So, John, what seems to be the next step, doesn't typically the building department want a proposed site plan showing your foundation with setbacks?
Yes.
Okay, I think that what I'm hearing is you're gonna need a site plan with existing and proposed conditions. Identify where the wetland buffer zone is. Typically, we require some sort of erosion control on at the buffer lines. And you could typically show that. I think Mary's point is how do you propose to do your driveway? As I recall, because I think Mason and I, when we were out there, your entire front yard is almost a kind of a gravelly, I'm not going to say a manicured lawn, but more, you can kind of drive a vehicle all over your property. I think I was almost parked where your building is looking at when we pulled in, but I think showing your proposed driveway, what that's going to help us ascertain is, can we look at this as an RDA, or are you going to have to do an NOI? I mean, at first blush, where the building is proposed outside the 50 buffer and outside the 100 buffer, we've allowed these by RDAs in the past. I think the impact of what your driveway is going to do will be helpful to determine if we can continue down this pathway. You're going to need it for let's just say the commission decides that you have to come in for a NOI. The plan that you're preparing for the RDA is identical what you're going to need for the NOI. So you might be able to skip a step depending on the detail you put on the plan. But let me circle back to Mary. Mary, any further questions? Did I do a
Yeah.
summary of that made sense to everyone?
Yeah, I'm looking at Mass Mapper and looking at the plan, and the wetlands that are shown on Mass Mapper are much closer to the garage than what is indicated on this plan. They're shown at, 46 feet from the existing house. And you're-
John, if you stop sharing your screen, I can pull up the maps
about that.
to kind of give
Yeah,
you.
so one, I have a question about the wetland delineation, and it doesn't seem to have any indication of who did it or when it was done or how it was done. So typically you hire somebody to do that for you. It's not just the edge of the pond. There's wetland vegetation along the pond on both sides. And yeah, that is not what I'm looking at, but that's, you can estimate it from, from the green using the, see the measuring tool there? Yeah, right there, length. Even if that's right, that's only 49 feet. You're showing it at 100 feet or more. So, so that's why I'm saying that, the wetland needs to be delineated. You need a topographic survey because your portions of the site are in floodplain and you don't know how much it's in floodplain until you do topographic survey. It's, you know, there's just not quite enough information here. It's not clear where the driveway, as I mentioned, will turn in and whether you need to fill anything to do that. So I just think, you know, you can go back to the same engineer that did your site plan for your septic system and have them updated a little bit for you. That would be a savings, but I just can't see. We're not quite there yet with this. I think there may be a way to do it, but if that wetland is where it is, the impacts are considerably greater, so.
Okay, thank you, Mary. TJ, any further comments you want to add to this?
Nothing further, no.
Okay, Woody, how about yourself?
No, nothing further either. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Mick, anything further? Yeah, you're on mute, Mick.
Quick question, John. I know that your septic was shown on the plan. There's no proposed changes to the septic, right?
No.
Okay.
I did find one other plot plan. I don't know if it would help you that I submitted with the building department. I don't know if you guys have reviewed this. You want to look at it? Can you see that?
Yeah, there's way more detail on this. When was this done?
It looks like
Hancock in
twenty
the
twenty.
date.
March 2022.
2022.
Oh, great. Great.
Okay, yeah, this is
This is-
actually the plan we're looking for,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
I just modified that other one half-assed kind of. to be
Yeah.
honest, With the
So-
sketch, but basically, if you can see, we're gonna be going right here.
Yeah. And again, it doesn't quite look like they flagged the wetlands either. It looks like they pulled something from GIS, so it may be closer or further away, you know. That's just the GIS overlay on there. But you can ask them to have somebody flag the wetland so we know exactly where it is. And then add your addition, your garage to this plan and the driveway. I mean, this is, you know,
Do you want a
at
full
least 50%
delineation?
there. Yeah, I mean, that's what we'd ask for anyone, you know, you can't just take that, because the information online is just an estimate from aerial photography or something. It could be way less than that, and you don't want to impinge your property more than you need to. It could be more. Doesn't look like it is from the aerial, but it would be helpful to have that correct. Not only helpful, but we require it. That's part of what we have to do is review and make sure the wetland is identified correctly and protected. So we would need erosion control barriers shown, the location of work, any grading around the work, all that stuff. Hancock will know what to show on the plan.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Yep.
Frank, any further questions? Okay. So, John, I think what I would suggest is why don't you reach out to Hancock, tell him you're coming in for an RDA, and the question is whether this project is going to be allowed on an RDA or have to be or fall into an NOI. It seems like it's drifting more towards an NOI with the limited information we have right now. But for that, any other comments, John? Do you want to make any other comments, or any other members have any further comments on this? What I'm gonna, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, if you're
I'm
within
not-
2 feet of the wetland, I mean, if you don't have a decent buffer zone between the limit of work and your wetland, you know, you're gonna probably be in a notice of intent. So just, it looks like you're probably gonna be looking at that based on this image.
If you're within the 50-foot buffer zone, it's a different standard for us where we can consider the RDA, but once you're within the 50-foot buffer, you're likely gonna need an NOI. So I guess the question is, John, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue this for 30 days to give you a chance. I don't know how backed up most of these consultants are, but it seems like 30 days is what it's been taking to get. And if you're gonna have to do a wetlands delineation, then that may take some time.
Yeah, I'm working with Hancock on another project in Ipswich right now, so I have a good rapport with them, so.
Well, we can continue this to the next meeting, but I'm gonna suggest, why don't you continue it to the November 19th meeting, just to give you 30 days to try to put this
Sounds
together.
good.
Okay, and, all right. So I'll entertain a motion to continue this matter to the November 19th meeting at the applicant's request.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Frank, sorry you weren't here when this got posted. You don't have much of a voice on this one tonight. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, next matter is, it's an open enforcement order. It's expired DEP file number 0501344, 2 Old Point Road, Sunset Club. The respondent has submitted an NOI, and I guess the matter is, do we want to consider closing this enforcement order? Mason, what, on the original enforcement order, I don't have it in front of me, but as I recall, it was no further work, refresh erosion control, and submit an NOI.
Correct.
There were no other requirements on that?
I can double check that for you.
Okay.
Don't know if I have it right here in the folder. I might need some more time to dig that up.
Okay, well, you know, why don't we do this? We'll just kick this to the next meeting, but as I recall, I'm pretty sure that's what it is, but certainly there's no urgency tonight to close this matter out. All right, so moving on, next enforcement order is 105 Northern Boulevard, unpermitted work. Applicant has provided a revegetation plan, planting has been completed. I sent pictures out to the members. Mason, I think you did a site inspection?
Yep. Yeah, I was able to go out on the site and there was grass plugs in the front side and backyards. They're planted appropriately with spacing, and ended up sewing in and connecting to the existing vegetation in the back part of the backyard. And I also have some photos I can share. This is the front yard here.
Those may be too close together. I think that's 11 by 11 grid, not 12 by 12.
These were the rest of the plantings that he was putting in this area here to tie in with the existing vegetation.
No, it looks good.
Yep.
All right, so thank you, Mason. Mason, what's your recommendation on this?
Yeah, I recommend that we ratify this enforcement order. I think he successfully and in completion completed his planting plan as it was shown on the plans.
Okay. Questions from the members? Mary, what are your thoughts on this?
No, I mean, if there's not a hurry on the issue of closing out the enforcement order, just, we could wait a little bit to make sure these new plantings take and that the remaining plantings are installed. But I think that it's a pretty good effort to date to rectify the situation. So those are my only thoughts.
Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe, why don't we consider doing this? I'm going to throw this out there. Why don't we amend the enforcement order that the agent will do a final review in, May of 2025 to verify that the plantings have taken, and then we'll just close out the enforcement order at that point. But we'll take it off our agenda. It'll just be continued. We'll put it on that, whatever the first Monday of May is.
Yep.
Does that sound good?
Yeah,
Okay.
sounds great.
Woody, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does, and plantings look good.
Yeah. TJ, how about you? What are your thoughts on that?
Perfect.
Okay, and Mick?
Sounds like a good plan to me, Bob. I'm good with
Okay.
that.
All right. So Frank, just for background, unbeknownst to most people, when you live in Plum Island, you really can't do much in your yard without permission from us. This was a perfect example. And I want to give both Heidi and Jim high marks. They've been very cooperative in the effort they put into it. It's so much easier to resolve these matters when we have cooperation. And thank you, Jim and Heidi, for doing that. It looks great down there. So I'll entertain a motion to amend the existing enforcement order, including that no further review will be taken until the first Monday in May, at which time the agent will make a determination on the success of the planting.
So moved.
Second,
Okay, all those in favor? Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
yes,
Mick?
Aye.
And Bob Connors votes yes. So Mason, you've got the wording on that. Basically, we'll take this off the future agendas. First Monday in May is when we'll inspect. Third Monday in May is when we will consider closing this out.
Yep.
I have a
Okay.
quick question for Heidi and Jim. Did you fertilize by any chance? I'm just curious, when you put the plants in, did you add any fertilizer?
You're on mute, Jim, if you're,
Yeah, we can't hear you.
yeah, I think you're on mute or your volume is down, Jim.
I believe, Jim, you can kind of give maybe a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but they've been in for about a week or so.
Yeah.
They originally had a little bit of soil in the pots that they came with, and from what I saw, it looks like there's continued growth on the plants.
Okay, yeah, sometimes, a little bit of fertilizer in the spring, you might be helpful, or even in the fall, yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on. Thank you, Jim and Heidi. All right, moving on. Next matter is enforcement order for DEP file number 0501326, 108 Main Street. At our last meeting, or at the September 17th meeting, as I recall, we agreed to amend this to take no action. They're either going to request an extension of time or file an NOI on 12/31/24. In anticipation, I hope that some state activity may toll this permit. So no further action is required on that. Enforcement order, DEP file number 0501336, 3 Newburyport Turnpike, unpermitted work. The original the original enforcement order was basically a stop work order to refresh existing erosion controls and submit an NOI. All of those conditions have been met at this time. So do we want to consider closing this out where we do have a valid notice of intent? And they have an expired order of conditions that they're gonna want to close out, so I don't see where there's a gap on, they're gonna wind up doing this, so. So, why don't I stop there? Mary, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm abstaining from this project.
Oh,
No
okay.
conflict, so
Yep,
thank you.
yep. Sorry about that. Woody, what are your thoughts on this one?
It sounds good. To close out the, order. Sounds good.
Okay. All right, thank you, Woody. TJ, what are your thoughts on this matter? Yeah, you're on mute, TJ.
Yeah.
if you're-
No further, no thoughts. I'm good.
Okay, Mick, what's your thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
just, excuse my ignorance, I guess, Bob, but I'm just trying to understand the process. So we're gonna close out an expired order of conditions. And how do we re-establish order of conditions for the work that's gonna be ongoing?
So the empirical chronology of this is an order of conditions that expired.
Mhm.
We issued the enforcement order that we're discussing now that basically was to give them a heads up, don't do any further work, refresh the erosion control, and to submit an NOI by a date certain. They've met the conditions of the enforcement order. We're on our continued public hearings, we'll be discussing the notice of intent. We're not issuing a certificate of compliance for the expired order. That's still open.
Okay,
That's still open. It should be covered by what they've submitted for the NOI.
Right.
And then they'll have to close both out, the old order and the new order, once they're in compliance, but.
Yeah.
So the matter
Which
is there any reason to keep the enforcement order in place, or do we consider closing it out? Do they've met the conditions of the original order?
I don't think if they've met the requirements of the enforcement order, of course, that can be closed or can
Right.
be.
Yeah, that's the only thing being discussed at this
Okay.
moment, so.
Yeah, my concern was just control over, not control,
Right.
but to have governance over continuing work outside of that enforcement order.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. All right, Frank. What we have here is that an order of conditions that expired. And typically what we've been doing is issuing enforcement order. I'm gonna call it a friendly enforcement order, but it just gives some insight to the applicant that it really can't proceed with any of the work that was proposed on the expired order, that you need to file a new notice of intent to pick up those conditions and basically refresh the erosion control. So they've met the standard on the enforcement order, but there's still a outstanding expired order that they're going to have to get a certificate of compliance on. And then the new order of conditions, when it's approved, will also require a certificate of compliance. So we have a double check on making sure that we get to the finish line on that. So just for FYI on this, where you're,
Yeah, sounds good.
okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to close the enforcement order for 3 Newburyport Turnpike as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Okay. Roll call, all in favor. TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
yes.
Mick,
All right.
and Bob Connors votes aye. All right, next matter, enforcement order, DEP file number 0501201. It's expired. 30 Riverview Drive for unpermitted work. Mason, can you give us an overview on this and where we stand on this?
Yeah, so I think a couple of the members have been able to come out to the site to get some eyes on it. But to sum it up, there was unpermitted work, alteration of an inland bank to help out some flooding issues that was happening on the road in relation to a BVW that was across the street. There was a site walk conducted with the Concom members on 10/5, and we had kind of discussed some remediation possibilities and gone over the work that has already been done.
Okay. Well, I see the applicant is, I see handsome couple on my screen here. Do you want to
So
give
nice.
us, yeah? Would you,
That
would you
rules
like?
on any of us, so.
Yes, no, I know, we're just. The youth of America compared to our ages, for God's sake.
Absolutely, Bob.
Do you have anything you want to offer, or do you want to just answer questions? What would you like to do? I apologize, I wasn't at the last meeting. I did drive by the property yesterday and saw what looked like kind of a remnants of the old swale that was there. About a 10-foot section, but
Bob, if I could share my screen, I can.
yeah, why don't you do
aerial
that, Mary?
view.
Okay, that'd be
Um,
great, man.
just gonna take a second here. Can you all see this?
Yep.
Okay, and I guess this must be the swale here.
Yeah.
That's your clamshell
Yep.
parking lot. And if I remember correctly, the stream flows in this direction.
Yeah, you can almost see, Mary, like there's like a black, like I think they maybe like a black line goes across the street, like of like blacktop.
Yep, right there. Yep.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Yep. So there's wetland here. And then I don't remember what the size of the culvert was, under the road, 12-inch or something.
12, yeah.
Yep. And then there, was this has all been culverted around the parking area now into an open swale right here, and then it goes back underground under a little farm road into the tender crop field here.
Yep.
So, and I believe that this shows as a little stream on the USGS map, although in this one, it goes in the other direction. It looks like it's going to a pond and out here.
I mean, yeah, there is a pond that's Matt's, that's way bigger in the direction, like that doesn't kind of do that
Yeah.
path.
Oh, it's
really.
going, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, it's going this way, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
I
turning
mean, that does go, yeah, correct. Yeah, you can see the pond it's just not that
way
shape.
back here, that our irrigation pond. right?
Exactly. Yep.
Just for folks that didn't get a chance to get to the meeting. And so the issue is, it does qualify as an intermittent stream because it's flowing out of a wetland into another wetland. There was an active channel there that's now been piped. About 100 linear feet or so, we estimated.
Yeah, and it is dry most of the time. I'd say, 90 to 95% of the year, it's actually dry. So it's just when we get heavy rains, that kind of thing, that it becomes a little stream.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so I guess, Mary, what are your thoughts? How do we resolve this for this family, the Lakey?
Well, it seems they have a couple of options, and we have a couple of options. One is to restore original conditions because there was a resource there. One is for them to file an after the fact notice of intent with some professional support from a wetland scientist to convince us that that work was done in compliance with the regulations, because the stream either wasn't a stream or the bank didn't have any bank function that is, needed to be protected or something like that. I mean, I don't think that there's an option to just let it sit, because there was a direct alteration to a resource, even though it is an intermittent stream. It doesn't flow all the time. It's a conveyance from one wetland to another. And we don't know the problem is that it is no problem if you would it would be a lesser problem if you'd taken the pipe out and allowed daylight the stream. But when you bury a stream, then the channel capacity of the stream has to be taken into account, whether or not you're affecting the flow capacity of the channel by culverting it. You use the same culvert size, I think, as what was there already. So there's already a restriction under the road, and that restriction is just continuing out into the open ditch. So that's probably not, it's probably not an issue hydrologically, that in terms of creating upstream impacts, because they're already, but it could cause some impacts further downstream. I mean, it'll
Mary, does it
probably back
matter?
up onto your property just further down is what will happen. Yeah.
The one thing I don't know if for Bob or whoever it was is like, we didn't mention kind of what the other side, like that has all filled in over the years. So like where more water used to have a place to kind of like settle.
Yeah.
Now it just comes and it wants to go this, it just is all.
Yeah, and
rough.
there's ways of, we can certainly allow culverts that have been buried with sediment to be, for that sediment to be removed. That can be done by hand and is allowed in the regulations. It's the loss of the channel that's the issue. And that's where it daylights into a deeper ditch that was created as sort of a settling pond, which is not a bad idea. And they were talking about planting in this area. And then it goes into a culvert again under the little farm road at the end of that picture there. Yeah.
Okay, Mary, why don't I do this? Why don't you hold your thoughts and I'll circle back and see what other members have.
Okay.
Okay. Woody, what are your thoughts on this one?
I don't have any questions at this time. I went on the sidewalk and I'm kind of trying to figure out what the best thing to do here is. So I'm just kind of sitting back listening.
Okay, thank you, Woody. TJ, what are your thoughts on this one?
I was not on the sidewalk, so that's the first time I'm seeing this. So I don't. It looks like we've got our back against the wall a little bit, and there's some things that we have to hold to, but try to figure out how to make it as the least amount of pain possible for the applicant. So I'm going to listen a little bit more too.
Okay. Mick, what are your thoughts on this one? I mean, one thought comes to mind. This drain pipe that goes across the road, is it actually town owned? Was it put in properly, or is it just someone on one side of the street is getting rid of some water to the other side of the street,
Right.
and this is kind of disorganized on all this, where that. Well, what are your thoughts, Mick?
Well, that really is in the same line with my kind of initial question, and Mary, sorry I couldn't make it that morning to that
Yeah,
sidewalk.
I'm sorry you weren't feeling well.
But like the initial, I guess, alteration was the installation of that culvert and the installation of the street or the neighborhood, correct?
Oh, probably. Or I
Yeah.
mean, or it could have been a drainage feature for the road when the road was built.
Yeah, exactly. That's what
We don't
that's kind
know.
of what I'm envisioning is like when they put the neighborhood in, they put Riverview, in where it was installed to accommodate flow, across a low spot. So,
If
I don't, I'm not like, but what I'm saying is like, okay, so now we're going back to the original, like who installed it? How was it installed? Was it installed correctly? And obviously, whether it's clogs or improper installation, it's now causing issues on this property. So, Katie, we're really working to help you alleviate the impact of your property, but just try to understand the process and, kind of who owns this now is really, I think, a big question to me.
if I might
Yeah,
interject,
certainly.
Mick,
Yeah,
for
certainly.
1 second. So like one thing that Mary had put the pictures up, you're exactly right. Someone put a pipe under that ground. And this is our property we're trying to deal with. I don't want to keep going back to my neighbor across the street. When we moved in, that pipe was mostly full of sediment, even on my neighbor's side of the street. So I dug that out so that the water washed through. And so the water did leave that side, the right side of the street, the wetland side of the street. So it could go through. I mean, I think we did walk over there. If I don't dig that out, that will fill in. The water won't even come across the street. That will fill in right there. The other thing was the other pipe that we showed was the one that the other pipe, you see a picture of it, was a 10-foot pipe that the tractor had run over. So the reason for a majority of the flooding is that pipe had been crushed and filled with sediment for as long as we've ever been here, which caused more backup on the property until it goes up and over the little hump. So we fixed that too. So again, I look at it as that was done that was done 10 years ago, but it's a big, and then go 10 feet back and clog it with that, you're not really going to drain your property. And it's historically wet. I mean, we know that, but that did not help for sure. And once we put that in, it made the water move just moved to continue where it wanted to be, which is the pond out at the end.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with like some of the actions you've taken. You're trying to alleviate the flooding both on the south side of the property and to the north on your side.
Yeah.
I understand that. It's to me, I'm like trying to get my head around like who kind of owns this. Like the wetland was originally altered at some point, and the flow was originally altered, to accommodate the street and the homes and things like that. So how do we properly go through the process to make sure that the flow happens and that where the flow goes is properly accommodated for? So it's kind of like, it's like I'm going back to the chicken and the egg, I guess. Who put the pipe in and who owns it?
It's, and I'm, oh,
So what I'm going to suggest is that I think to Mary's point, cleaning of the pipes, wasn't the problem. And we all get it, what action you've taken. What we're trying to do is find a way, the least painful way forward for you guys without making you take this all apart. And I think the best suggestion we can offer is engage the service of a wetland consultant and see if they can review this and determine how little impact, if any, your actions has taken and go from there so that you're not faced with kind of undoing what you did without a permit. I mean, sadly, that's what I'm looking at. And again, that's just following the regs. I doubt the original drain pipe across the street was put in with any thought, and it was exactly like you suggested. It was to drain the other side of the street, get the water off my property, put it on someone else's property. And hang on one second. But that's my overview of where you're at right now. Mary, what would you like to add to that? And
yeah, no, I agree. This, either end, the culverts at either end, the existing culverts are repairing or maintaining the culverts at either end aren't a concern of mine. It sounds like the downstream culvert was done a while ago anyway. It's just, we can't have people burying streams, and even if it's an intermittent stream. And so there needs to be a filing to allow it and the conditions described that allow this particular thing to happen. So it can be properly permitted or it needs to be restored. In my mind, those are my, unfortunately, that's my take on it.
okay. So guys, I think you've kind of got the dilemma that you're in. You either almost really got to put back the swale the way it was, but you're going to still need a minimum of an RDA or an NOI. But you need someone that can give you some wetland guidance on this, which we can't. Sadly we're the review side of this equation, and I know it looks great down there. When I drove by it, I couldn't even find it. You could just see a little trench out back. But that's the dilemma that we're in.
So just so I'm clear on what you need from us. So we need basically a wetlands specialist to either say like, yes, what we've done is okay, as long as you guys do like plant around the like little retention area, or like, we basically need somebody to say, this is what you need to do in order to,
Yeah,
like,
Yeah,
So-
either we can issue you an enforcement order and direct you to restore the conditions, in which case you don't have to necessarily engage anybody. Or you can, to keep it, you need to go through the permit process and get somebody to
yeah,
get
you-
that
you-
Can I go back to like, the question I have is, there's a, it kind of goes back to maybe what Mick said. There's a man-made pipe that went under the ground. Matt's, again, I don't want to do it, but like on the other end, a tractor drove over it and it stopped the water. What if the tractor now drives on my property and stops the water right coming across the street? How would that be any different at that? Like, so I'm just saying, like, where the water comes across the street now, if that pipe had been run over there by a tractor, water would never come from that side of the street over to my side of the street.
Yeah.
So how does that?
I mean, you can maintain existing structures if they're damaged. That's that's a different thing.
Mhm.
Okay,
You know what it is, you just need someone that can give you some guidance on
sure.
how much impact or how minimal impact of what you're done and how it complies with the regs. And again, we're just here enforcing what the regs are, trying to do it in the least painful way for you. But I think if you find a wetland consultant that's familiar with Newbury and get some guidance from it and know what they're going to do, they're going to tell you, yeah, this is so minimal, we can do an NOI, or you can't do it even with an NOI and you're better off going the enforcement order and just putting the swale back in. And putting the swale back in, honestly, is probably your cheapest and fastest time, because we can just mandate that you do that. But if you want to keep the improvements, you've got to take another couple of extra steps.
Yeah, I think I think what we did is the right move. I mean, we live here every day, so we.
Yeah, yeah, no, we
notice
get it.
Yeah.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we just continue this matter to the next meeting? And what you guys can decide, talk to a consultant and he's gonna give you, yeah, just go the enforcement route because you're never gonna be able to get it approved. I can't find a way to approve what you did based on the current regs. And that's what we're dealing with. We don't have a local wetland bylaw in this part of town, so it's strictly the Wetland Protection Act at the state level that we're managing at this point.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so Mason, right now, this is just a verbal enforcement order.
Yes,
I would suggest that the Lackeys don't need to necessarily come to the meeting if they just want to leave a message with Mason as to how you want to
Yeah,
handle it.
Yeah, so what I'm suggesting, Mary, why don't we just leave it a verbal enforcement order for the time being? Let them get some bearing on what direction they want to go.
Mhm.
We can review it at our next meeting, and you guys, you can just tell Mason that we're hiring somebody, and we'll just kick this down to the next meeting and give you a chance to figure it out.
He should have a list of consultants too.
Yeah.
yep, and I can send that over to you
and
whenever.
I
Russ
assume we
would
can
like.
use, if we have somebody else that we
Yeah.
know, we can use whoever, okay.
Yeah, no, just make sure they're familiar with the regs. That's the big thing, and
Yeah.
we'll go from there.
Okay,
All right, so team, why don't we continue this to and we'll put it up on November 5th agenda. We'll just carry this forward to November 5th. It doesn't require a motion or anything because it's not a public hearing, so. All right, we'll continue this to the November 5th meeting for an update from the owner. All right, thank you, guys.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, enforcement order 62 Mill Road, DEP file number 0501419. Mason, I know, where do we stand on this? I know you've had some.
Yeah, so we had
communication,
issued a verbal enforcement order just to stop work. We had told him that he needed to stabilize the backyard with seed and hay mulch. Also cut up a fallen tree that had fallen into the buffer zone area. Since our last meeting, he's completed all these things. I believe that we went over and looked at the pictures from last meeting, and he was in compliance with all the work that he said he was going to finish up.
Okay, so the only thing we want to do is verify the vegetation is, I mean, this is just straight grass yard anyway, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. So do we want to consider this like we did on 105 North and just continue this matter to May 1? And let the agent do an inspection? And because there's also a request for a certificate of compliance on this. And just wrap both of them up at that time, May 1, and then if everything looks good, Mason, we'll put it on the agenda for the May 16th meeting.
Yep.
Or whatever the third meeting of May is. Does that sound like a plan, team?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay,
Good.
doesn't require any further action. We have no extension requests. Certificate of compliance, 7 Marsh Avenue, DEP file number 051413. This was close out the order of conditions on the property. Mason, why don't you give us an overview of this? What was this? Was this a new house? Was it an addition? What was?
So this order is for the demolition and the rebuild of a single family home. It's subject to riverfront regulations. The owner is looking for a partial certificate of compliance in order to sell the property. And at this point, the demolition has been completed. The erosion controls were refreshed and reestablished. And all bare soils on the property were seeded and stabilized within the past couple weeks. These are issues that we had noticed, or that I had noticed before, that I recommended that he cleaned up before coming in for his partial COC. And then I also have a letter from him explaining what is left to be done by the future property owners, as well as what has been completed. And I have some photos to share of the site as well.
Okay, is the applicant or the representative on the line, on the call?
Believe, yes, he is.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, hi, if you
Yeah.
could give your name and title,
Hi.
that'd be great.
Yeah, I'm Peter Laraviere. I'm the property owner. I also live 17 Marsh Ave in Newbury, which is an adjacent property. This was, I'm not sure if this would recollect any memories, but this was the Blood property, Arthur Blood. Pretty much the picture here you see, this was like a junkyard. There was a small house that was up by Riverside. So I had submitted an NOI to take the house down and then again put in the appropriate erosion controls and kind of bring the property back to more of its natural state. That was done. The NOI, everything you see there was on the certificate of compliance. It gets into a little bit of a backstory here. Is I had the NOI submitted. The NOI was submitted such that there was an existing structure that was within the 200-foot boundary. Quite frankly, it probably encroached on the 100-foot boundary. So I submitted an NOI that showed a new structure
I
that would
remember this now.
potentially go with, and encroach on the 200-foot boundary. That NOI was approved basically with these appropriate COCs that you're looking at here. Actually, after the 2 weeks, there is grass growing now. It's pretty much the grass is all grown in. But based on getting some consulting advice, they had recommended that I don't go for a complete COC approval, but I go for a partial COC approval such that I could sell the property and the new potential owners could take advantage of the structure that was there prior, and that the NOI was submitted such that it showed a new structure going in to the 200-foot boundary. What was described to me is if I went with a complete COC approval, that opportunity to build within the 200-foot boundary would be null and void, and that if the new owners of the property wanted to encroach on the 200-foot boundary, they would have to submit an NOI from, from the start, from the beginning, if you will.
So,
So that's where we are with this.
let me ask you a question. So you've not actually constructed the house, is that correct?
No, I'm selling this as a lot of land, and then
Okay.
the new owners, again, the partial COC approval would allow them to build such that as the NOI basically shows on the NOI that there is a structure within the 200-foot boundary. This COC was basically, it was required that I fill in, obviously, the foundation or the foundation was removed, but everything was removed. Fill in the hole, if you will, then seed it and put salt hay down in order to end the appropriate erosion controls that Mason has described. And Mason's been to the property a couple times, and
Mhm.
he
No, I
could-
mean, it looks like you've stabilized the property after the demo for sure. I'm somewhat confused because you can transfer the property with an open order of conditions, especially if they have a house to be built. They may want to come back and do a minor amendment to it or what have you as little things change. But it would be uncommon for the commission to grant even a partial certificate of compliance when the majority of the work, you've done the demo, you've done the stabilizing of the site, which is great. And it's a great gateway for a new owner to undertake construction. But I just don't see where we would be entertaining a partial certificate of compliance, because it'd be everything it's typically it's only landscaping remaining. We're waiting for it to vegetate or some other minor condition after 90% or 95% of the work is complete. And
Right,
you're probably at the 30% just on the demo and vegetation here, but
yeah, I think to me, it's probably more than 95, closer to almost 100% complete on the COC. I think if I wanted to go for a complete approval, I think it's there for the approval and to close out the COC. The advice that I received was don't close out the COC because it will limit the new owners in terms of them being able to, for lack of a better term, piggyback the current
Yeah.
NOI and what was described on the NOI.
yeah, I mean, the order of conditions follows the property, not you. But why don't you hold there? Let me open this up to questions from the members and just get some discussion going. Mary, what are your thoughts on this one?
So I can kind of see both sides of this because it was a project where the work that was closest to the river was a demo and restore, and that's done. And there's about half of the house is just inside the riverfront area, and that would be the part that he's trying to preserve as approved, so that someone else didn't have to go through the same permit process if they wanted to build it within that same envelope before this order expires in 2026, it looks like. So, I can sort of understand why somebody might be hesitant to take on an open order where it isn't clear whether the work that has been done to date is in compliance, I guess is what the issue is.
That's
we-
exactly it.
Yeah.
Do we have all conversations go through the chair, just so we have clarity on how this meeting is run? Do we have an as-built plan showing what's been completing and what is to be completed?
Well, we have the plan in the Dropbox of what was proposed, but I didn't see anything of it. There wasn't an as-built of the interim stage.
Yeah, I mean, how do we condition a partial, Mary, without having a minimum, an as-built showing all that and then referencing it for
You know-
what's remaining. I mean,
Well, yeah,
that's,
you could, the as-built of the topo would be the only thing.
Yeah.
Because there was, there wasn't any grade changes proposed in that area. It was just removing debris and removing the building. I don't, is there any further planting or anything like that proposed, or is it all just seeding? I'm not sure why there was so much clearing. Or maybe it was, I'm looking at the photos wrong. There's only the seeding was only in the area immediately around the building that was taken down. Is that right, Mason?
Yes, that was where the
Okay.
seating needed to be done.
Okay,
The
all right,
the other
that
parts of
would
the
make
property
sense.
were fully
Yeah.
vegetated.
and I assume the order did require an as-built.
The order did not require an as-built,
It didn't require an as-built, okay,
Nope, just a written letter from the engineer.
okay. Do we have that?
Yes, I do. That is right here. I don't know if I put it in the Dropbox.
I guess if we had a letter that, was saying that the work that has been done to date was in compliance with the order, then I can sort of understand why you want to just protect that approval in the future for the next couple of years anyway, just so somebody, he could then market it as a permitted lot.
yeah, but I mean, it is a permit, they have a permit to do all this work. My hesitation.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so he does still
Yeah.
have that, right?
Yeah,
he-
yeah,
That would be
the-
carried over anyway, right?
Yeah, it follows the property, and the work that this gentleman has done could be totally disturbed by the next person doing the development.
True.
I mean, I just think it
Yeah.
should be handled in its entirety, and,
Yeah, that I can see that too.
okay, Mary, let me move on to Mick. What are your thoughts on this one? You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around this whole partial completion. Where the application on file, I think it's dated 10/1, October 1st this year. It says that the work regulated by the above reference order of conditions has been satisfactorily completed. So that's, to me, requesting a complete, on the order of conditions that's on file. So I don't see. I guess I'm not understanding really correctly how we can do a partial order of conditions and how that helps. I mean, to me, to clean the property of that order of conditions so it can be sold, saying that the work has been complete would be to the advantage of the seller, and also a clear, title for the owner, that they know if they have to build, they have to, put in their own order or put in their own NOI to construct property. So
Yep.
I guess I'm not understanding the whole, advantage or disadvantage of a partial approval.
Yeah, I mean, in the past, we haven't entertained partial certificates of compliance if all the vegetation wasn't installed.
Right.
Yeah.
And so here we don't even have the structure installed. We're probably at the 30% of the total scope of the project that's been approved.
Correct.
Where the demo has been done. And we typically won't entertain a COC, even a partial, until they're at a 90% completion. And then we carefully identify what is remaining to be done, what is still open, so that there's no confusion. We add clarity to it. But all right, well, you know what? We're going to talk about this a little more, so I'll just keep going on. Woody, what are your thoughts on this? And we'll go to TJ.
I don't have any questions or comments at this time. Thank you.
Okay, TJ, what are your thoughts on this? TJ,
Thank you,
you're
maybe
on,
Step
y-
down for a minute.
yep, okay. All right. So I'm not comfortable setting a precedent that when a majority of the actual construction excavation hasn't been performed and that issuing a partial certificate of compliance is premature at this time. I mean, that's what I'm looking
Yeah.
at.
We, if I may, Bob,
Yeah,
we
certainly,
have,
man.
obviously, a certificate of compliance has a box on it that says a portion, this is, a portion of the work has been completed or the full amount of work has been completed. So you could issue a certificate of compliance that would just say a portion of the work has been completed, but that would close out the whole order. So that's, so that, I don't think that's what he wants to do. I would think he wants to keep the order active, and
Yeah, they having the order of conditions is
Right.
is the real sellable item, and I'm talking as
right.
the
But we
developer
could
myself.
probably do something like issue a letter or something saying that, as of this date, the site is in compliance with the order of conditions or something like that. If he needs to have something to show somebody. Or if there is an issue with the buyer. It doesn't seem like there should be an issue with the buyer. It's a permit, so yeah.
Yeah, it's a permit. Again, my big thing is all the work this gentleman's done looks great. The
Mhm.
next owner comes in and he stockpiles all the spoils from the excavation in this new vegetated area, and we've already signed off on it. Now becomes an enforcement order to get him take it out of
Right,
there.
right.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It just,
Yep.
I think we complicate a simple process.
If they
but-
don't want to do it, then they just, they can request a full certificate of compliance at that point.
Yeah, exactly, if they decide not to build, so. Okay, is anyone in favor of issuing a partial certificate of compliance on this? I'm just kind of doing a straw poll.
I am not.
Okay. Mary, what do you,
I can go either way, but
Okay.
I will go with the board. If that's what they want to do, that's fine too.
okay, what are your thoughts on this?
After the discussion, I would say no. No partial.
Okay. Frank, what do you think on this?
Well, I'm curious, if he doesn't get the certificate of completion approved, is he unable to sell the property?
No.
And then how does the next buyer? Okay,
No, the value is this, it's having a permit to allow this work that is locked in for a period of time that if regulations change next month, may be precluded if he didn't have that permit. So properties are sold and transferred all the time with a order of conditions. It's considered a value add to the property than being unpermitted to do the work, but beyond that, that's, we're not here to provide title or transfer advice. Our typical model is you're at a 90% completion and we'll do a partial. If you're at 100% completion, we'll give you a full certificate of compliance. And so I don't think it's ready for a certificate of compliance, a partial certificate of compliance, so. Okay,
Looks
so
like
what
you've
I
got
did,
2 hands up. I don't know if you want to entertain that, but
No.
there are
yeah, who's, yeah, I'm.
TJ
certified.
and the applicant. Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
just I'll let TJ chime in and Melvin chime in here in a minute, but this is Peter Laravere again. Just to be clear, the only thing that I'm trying to sustain for the buyer is the NOI had designated a new structure going into the 200-foot boundary. And it was taking advantage of grandfathering the existing structure that was there prior to demolition.
Yeah, no, that's very clear to all of us. I remember this. And we recommended that you get the NOI before you tore the house down to preserve options.
Right.
But you have one order of conditions that covers the entirety of the project. And
if other than you're saying leave the COC open and let the buyers inherit the
Yes.
COC that's
yeah,
currently-
the buyer has a buildable permit to go forward. That is of great value, especially in this area. It it would not be an impediment to title, you know, at this point. At some point, whoever does the work has to close it out. I mean, you can close out the entire certificate tonight based on the work you've done because you're abandoning the rest of the work. But why, you wouldn't want to do that because that diminishes the value of your project. But why don't we do this? TJ, you have your hand up. What do you want to offer on this?
Good evening, TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. I had worked with Peter on permitting this. I guess Mary had brought something up, and I'm not sure if the commission would entertain it, but would the commission be willing to write a letter just saying the work done to date is in compliance with the approved plans? Essentially not issuing a partial COC, but just saying what he's done is in compliance with the plans.
But we
If-
don't have an as-built that shows what's been done and it's in compliance with the plans. Wouldn't that be, you'd generate that letter if you're the site professional, TJ?
Yeah, I just didn't know if Peter needed something from the commission. I guess that was kind of the thought was if he needed something from the commission, you know, just stating what he's done isn't, you know, going against the approved plans. But other than that, I'm on board with the commission, and was actually the one that I recommended to Peter not to close it out, just for the buildable aspect of the lot itself. So I guess it's up to Peter if he needs something from the commission, or I guess how he wants to proceed with that. I mean, we can do an as-built if that helps get a letter. If he needs it, if he doesn't, then I guess it sounds like the commission does not want to issue a partial. So I think, again, as it's been stated, it can be sold with an open order. It happens,
Yeah,
you know, all the time.
the buyer's attorney had recommended a partial, so, I mean, that partial approval, they're a little nervous about taking this on. They probably don't understand it as well as they need to, so. And quite frankly, I need an answer fairly quickly or they're backing out of the deal, so.
Well, for me, without an as-built plan specifying exactly what's done and what's to be done, and then certified by the engineer, I just don't, I'm not comfortable considering even that limited certificate, a partial certificate of compliance. It's typically, I don't recall the commission ever doing that, but that's my position on this.
So I guess what's my next steps then? I can just leave it open as is and try to market and sell the lot with this open and convince them that it's a benefit to the buyer to keep it open, or is there an option to close this out totally at this point and just say close it and then I don't have to deal with it with a future buyer?
Maybe
Well,
the buyer can just contact the conservation agent or Bob directly. I mean, just to
yeah,
clarify some things. It
Yeah,
just
I
seems
think
like a
everything,
misunderstanding, yeah.
everything that you've done is exactly what appears that should be done, and Mason has verified it. I think Mary's point is, why don't you just have the buyer's attorney contact the agent and he can give them a status update of it. And TJ, you back it up with your, you know, your report. I mean, having the order of conditions in place is the value to your whole lot there from a development standpoint, but so.
They could just watch this, they could watch this meeting too. So
Yeah. So guys, we're not going to take any action at this time. You've got some direction that we've given you. So anything else, TJ, you want to add anything else, or the owner want to add anything else?
No, I guess I'm a little surprised, but that's it. I'll go with what the commission recommends.
Okay, thank you. All right, next matter is DEP file number 0501367, 3 Gaddison Lane, Lot 3. Applicant would like to close out the open order of conditions on the property and request a certificate of compliance. Mason, can you give us an update on this matter?
Yep, so this is a new single-family home on an approved subdivision. There's a BVW at the back of the property, as well as a salt marsh. there's no work within the resource areas. And then there was some noted field changes that were identified that had no further impact on buffer zone and resource areas. Let me grab that real quick. So the change it, pull up the as-built. So the field changes and modifications that were noted, were 2 retaining walls that were installed that were not on the original plan, a large rock retaining wall that was installed on the backside of the patio, and then a small retaining wall in the backyard about 15 feet from the screened porch. The patio, a patio was proposed to be installed in the backyard, and it ended up having a larger footprint by 39 square feet that was within the 100-foot wetland buffer. And that can be seen in these photos as well. So right here is the limit of the silt sock. This
We're
is,
not seeing your screen.
oh, sorry. Right here was the limit of the silt sock that was moved 5 feet closer to the house, which was also one of the changes noted by the engineer. And then this is the extension of the retaining wall next to the patio. The patio is right here, and this is the extended portion of it right here. Same structure, but just a different angle. The tile patio is up here. That was extended 39 feet further, or 39 square feet further into the wetland buffer zone. This is the tile patio right here. And I believe this is the corner that extended. This is the other retaining wall right here. This photo is taken pretty much from this spot right here. So another retaining wall there, both of them together.
Okay. Well, why don't I have you stop there, Mason? Is the applicant or his consultant here to make a presentation or to provide answers that members may have?
Yeah, my name's Adam True, Gadsden Lane LLC. Here on behalf of the applicant, Mike and Sue Collins. And yeah, I can answer any questions that come up. I'm actually looking at the letter from the engineer now. And it does appear that the proposed landscaping was installed slightly bigger than what was shown. But we're right at the edge of the 100-foot buffer, and we were having disturbed area already. You know, we were inside the limit of work. It just ended up being a little bigger on the patio and a little more retaining wall than was initially shown. But all again, still within the limit of work.
Mason, on the engineer's letter, what are the variances from what was proposed in the plan versus existing?
One 1 second.
I've got that here if you want, two retaining walls that were not on the proposed plan. A large rock wall, retaining wall installed along the back patio, and small retaining wall was installed in the backyard about 15 feet from the screen porch. So I think that's what Adam was just referring to is the,
Okay,
so rock wall,
Yeah.
the only retaining wall that was proposed was on the side yard of the dwelling, so this was due. The patio was proposed to be installed in the backyard, and was installed about 39 square feet larger than the 100-foot footprint, would if it's installed over what was lawn, so it's sort of a minor.
mhm.
60 square foot tile patio with 115 square feet of stone surrounding it was installed in the backyard that was not proposed. So there must be a little like fire pit or something. Is that what that is?
Yeah, so that's like stuff that the owners kind of did, kind
Yeah.
of just placing stones down, and it's in that area down there below, which is within the 100-foot wetland buffer.
Okay. I don't see any, oh, that probably that little, yeah, okay.
But it's within the area that we were doing work and got approved for clearing of trees up to a certain size, maintenance clearings. So we had approval up to the 50-foot mark, and I believe none of that's inside that.
Okay. So it would have been either lawn or this little garden.
Yeah, would have been either lawn or this, yeah.
So everything, the variance is all outside the 50-foot buffer, if I'm hearing everyone
Yes,
correctly.
looks
Okay,
like that's the case.
okay. Mary, any questions on this
No,
for Adam?
Nope.
Okay. TJ, any questions for Adam on this?
No questions.
Okay, Woody, any questions for Adam on this?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Mick, any questions for
I
Adam?
am all set, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, I do not have any questions. Are there any raised hands from the public at this time?
like it.
Standing.
Do any members have a request for a site visit or additional information at this time? Okay, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance with 3 Gaddison Lane, Lot 3.
So moved.
I'll
Do we
second.
have- Okay. Roll call, all in favor? Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
All right.
and Bob Connors vote yes. Frank, you know what? We appreciate your service here tonight.
Well, I hope I added some insight to everything for you.
Yes, no, your color
well,
commentary.
he could have voted on that one. I
Well,
wasn't here for the Gadsden Lane.
nobody wasn't here
Yeah.
when the request came in.
uh,
Because
I thought it was just the hearing.
yeah, well, you know what? I got a ruling from Lisa on it today, Mary, just to be,
Yeah, that's
and it,
interesting. Yeah.
so. Okay, next order of business is a certificate of compliance for DEP file number 0501389, 68 Green Street Lot 1 and 68 Green Street Lot 2. Why don't we take these separately? Mason, want to give us a quick overview? I know you did a site inspection on this.
Yep, so this was the construction of a single family home, on a subdivision. It had a garage, a porch and a deck, out of riverfront jurisdiction. And when I was on the site walk, I had some comments and notes about, the constructed wetland in the backyard of lot number 1. On the site plan, there was some proposed rocks and riprap, for an emergency spillway area to prevent some scouring. That I didn't see while I was on site. And then there was also questions raised about the proposed plantings, if there was any, for this kind of retention and basin area. So I don't know if the applicant or their consultant is here to address those questions.
Okay, is the owner or the applicant for this project available for a presentation or to answer questions from the members?
Good evening, TJ Melville with Millennium Engineering.
Right.
Um,
Thank you, TJ.
So I could pull up the as-built plan if that makes it easier. All right. So sorry, Mason, I know you said you had a couple questions. As far as the last one is the one I remember, yes, this is supposed to be planted. I know it was very much planted at one time. It sounds like that may have changed recently. And then, sorry, what were the other questions that you had written down?
The emergency spillway, so on the back of that, it shows, yeah.
Right here.
Um,
Okay.
that wasn't seen while we were on site.
Okay. I mean, it appears that they shot it from survey, so I'm not sure how I can go back and see what we have for pictures, or not sure if it was removed. But we can definitely note to get that put back in.
Yeah, just there was concern because there was some almost visible scouring at the back of that constructed wetland. So there was concern about that area filling up and then spilling into the riverfront area behind it.
Okay,
Mason,
yeah.
do you have pictures of that, Mason? That might be helpful if you. So the two questions were vegetation and this erosion around the spillways or the drain pipes going into this.
It might,
Yeah, no, go ahead, Mary. What were your?
no, my recollection is that the basin was pretty well vegetated. It just didn't appear to be, it was mostly just grass. So whatever they had planted originally, it maybe was not wet enough to support what was on the original. plan,
Oh,
but
okay,
it-
gotcha.
But it is vegetated, but the backside where the emergency spillway was proposed, that is a low spot in the berm, and it did look like there was some erosion there, and we didn't see the stone. You know, that would create that velocity dissipation on top of the spillway. So that was missing. And I don't know if this is the one, Mason, where there was some not fully vegetated along the edge of the wetland as well, or is that the other lot?
That's the other lot.
Okay.
So
So that was-
the only issue on this one, Mary, is the
Yep, the spillway.
riprap spillway.
Yep.
Okay. But everything else was satisfactory. All right, so TJ, I guess the question is, all the vegetation is in. You can probably ask the commission for a partial certificate of compliance and we'll exclude or we'll highlight the spillway. Or do you wanna, I mean, contractor could probably put that spillway in rather quickly and come back the next meeting and just get a full COC?
Yeah, I think that'd be the route we choose to go, is
Okay.
just continue out and try to get that installed in the interim.
Okay, so we'll continue this to the November 5th meeting. Okay, is that good with for you, TJ? Yeah, TJ.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right, any other questions, team? That way there, I think we can wrap that one up with a
Sounds
full.
good.
Okay. All right, so the other 68 Green Street Lot 2, DEP file number 0501391. TJ, why don't you give us your presentation on that and then we'll open it up to questions. Sounds like there was some vegetation was still sparse on this one.
All right. We'll plan up. Good evening, TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. So this is lot 2, kind of the lot that's in question. Again, here's kind of the limit of, or the limit of the 100-foot buffer zone. You know, the plan's generally in conformance with the approved plans. And you know, we're requesting a certificate of completion. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that anyone has from the site walk.
Okay, Mason, why don't you give us your overview, then I'll open it up to questions.
Yeah, so after the site walk, we had some kind of comments and observations. One of them being the needed reseeding and stabilization at the top of the bank. as well as what looked like an old farm road still existing in the resource buffer area. So at the bottom of the slope, there was some pavement and some crushed stone as well that was down there. And then the erosion controls are still in place too. So that's something that we'd like to see removed now that it's the bottom of the bank is fully vegetated.
Okay, questions, Mary? Questions? to
No,
TJ?
yeah, I think Mason summed it up. I think there's just a little bit of unstable slope on the south side of that house there, just not unstable, unvegetated, where it is really close to a steep slope. It would be good to get that buttoned up a little better, and there seems to be some remnants of pavement right at the bottom of the slope, again on the south side, where it must have been some sort of a road that went through there at some point, but the order of conditions probably addressed removal of debris, and that should be looked at as well.
Mason, do you have some pictures of the unvegetated area in question and the pavement?
Yep.
I think it just add clarity to TJ and the owner what we're looking at.
Let me, I don't think those got uploaded to.
Diane took a lot of pictures.
I know I was just realizing that,
Yeah.
that a lot of them were on her phone. I do have some though that I can share. So this is kind of what we were seeing from that old farm road here. You can see at the bottom of this picture.
That's beyond this erosion control barrier, it looks like in that image. So I would just say maybe whatever can be removed without using heavy equipment. And maybe there's a limited amount that can be done there, but it is beyond the limit of work.
And then this area right here, it's pretty much, the first five or 6 feet, I would say, at the top that needed some revegetation and stabilization. This photo shows it a little bit better.
And just to clarify, that's behind the house, or is that
Correct.
the?
Yeah,
Okay.
on the side, kind of.
Where you had your mouse originally was where the stabilization needs to happen. And then closer to lot 1 is where the old farm road was.
Okay. And sorry, just to clarify, I know Mason, you had said you guys want to see the erosion control taken out before the CSC's issued?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so team, obviously we could entertain a partial certificate, just excluding the vegetation that was mentioned and that the removal of the wattle or whatever else was in there for erosion control. TJ, are you looking for a partial on this? Because you're certainly not going to get vegetation in between now and the next meeting, just with temperatures dropping the way it is, but.
Yeah, I think the partial on this one would be adequate.
Okay, so what do we want to identify as to be completed on the certificate, on the partial? Removal of the erosion
controls, yep.
Okay.
Reseeding, and then,
Yep.
hand removal of any debris that's at the base of the slope.
Okay, debris removal base of slope, okay.
But not bringing in an excavator, rip up an old road,
yeah.
if it's just stuff that can be taken off the
Yeah,
surface.
removal by hand, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay, by hand, okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to issue a partial certificate of completion for 68 Green Street, Lot 2, with the following exceptions. Removal of erosion control, reseeding of sparse areas, and removing debris by hand at the lowest slope. Is that covered pretty much?
Yeah, do we know whether or not there's any urgency again to get this now, or is it something we can just do a full certificate on in the spring? Is there some something that's, are you just trying to close this out? Or is
Uh,
there some,
Yeah, I don't want to speak for the owner, but I know the lot's been sold. And I know we're trying to get closeout from planning as well. So that's why I'm only leaning towards the partial on this one.
Okay.
Like Bob had said, we're not gonna get grass grown there between now and
Sure.
the end of the year, so.
Yep.
If the commission would entertain that, I think that'd be the way we'd want to go.
that sounds fine.
Okay, so we have a motion for a partial with those exclusions. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second?
Okay, all in favor? Roll call. Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
All right.
and Bob Connors votes aye. Mason, do you have, you've got clarity on what we're going to exclude on that?
Yep, yeah, I got it written
Okay.
down. We're good to go.
Okay, all right, thank you, TJ. Okay, next matter, certificate of compliance, DEP file number 0501419. 62 Middle Road, the applicant wants to close out the open order conditions. Team, what we did on the, if you remember, we had a verbal enforcement order on this that we elected to continue to May, first meeting in May for vegetation stabilization. And then removal of the enforcement order and issuance of a certificate of compliance at that time. We could consider it a temporary, a partial certificate of compliance, excluding the vegetation. Or is the owner here? Is there anyone from the property owner or the applicant here that
I'm sorry,
wants to
which
speak?
item are you on, Bob?
62, yeah, 62 Middle Road.
Do we go back to that?
Well, it was continued from the last meeting. I don't know if did it not make it on the agenda?
Yeah, I'm not seeing it on the agenda.
No,
I have it as an enforcement order, but that's it.
yeah,
me as well.
Well, it was a certificate, it was originally a certificate of compliance at the September 17th meeting.
right. I thought we were gonna wait till that grass grew.
Well, I think we didn't make it, we were doing the enforcement order in the meantime,
Mhm.
right? So
Right, but I thought we were waiting on.
Yeah,
the
no, I think,
certificate.
no, I think that's the discussion we're having now, is
Okay,
to
got it.
piggyback matching what we did on the enforcement order.
Yes,
Okay. Because on your October 1st meeting minutes, there was a motion to continue the certificate for 62 Middle Road, and it was seconded, motion by O'Brien, seconded by Mick Brown. That's how it got on my call sheet. Okay, that was in the minutes that were approved.
okay.
so.
I don't remember what we
Yep.
decided to
Mhm.
do there,
Yep.
other than to,
Yep, now that's, so hence that's why we're dealing with it, so.
Yep.
Why don't we we'll address this, we'll piggyback this, Mason, with the enforcement order for an inspection, first meeting in May. And if it's ready to, if both are ready to go, we'll put them on the agenda and close out the enforcement order and entertain issuing the full COC. Okay?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay, next matter. Continued public hearing. Notice of intent, DEP file number 0501432, 3 Newburyport Turnpike, for construction of a mixed-use residential retail building, parking area, installation utilities, and all associated grading within 100 feet of BVW and IVW. Mason, why don't you give us a recap of where we're at? I know we've had a couple of site inspections out there. Why don't you tell us where we're at?
Yeah, so since our last site inspection, we've been waiting for them to get the wetlands redelineated at the back of the property. And also
Erosion control has been installed.
refreshing erosion controls.
Okay. TJ, are you on this one, or is it Matt on this one?
This is me as well.
Okay.
Good evening, TJ Melvin with Millennium Engineering. So yeah, as you guys were discussing, when we had the site walk, we talked about reestablishing the wetland line. Mark West from West Environmental went back out, and the line has been added to the most recent plan that we had submitted. I'll hop back to that in a second, but yeah, the new erosion controls have been installed, as we discussed on site, doing a wattle backed up with the silt fence. We have submitted revised plans. The only change, just pull it up and kind of go through it quickly. The only change that was made from the original plans that we had submitted was we actually just slightly extended this walkway a couple feet. The exterior door was about 2 feet past where the sidewalk stopped before. And as I mentioned, kind of getting back to the, let me zoom in, the wetland line. So Mark West, again, went back out and kind of reestablished this as the wetland line here, noting that the areas kind of where my mouse is here and here, that wetland line change was a result of the previous erosion controls being not located in the correct location, and therefore these areas have been areas of disturbed BVW, which we will be proposing to restore. Again, new erosion controls are in place, so once that restoration work is done, the old erosion controls would come out and kind of return that back to the way it was. Other than that, there's no other plan changes since the last time we were here. We're also going through a minor modification with planning, and Joe Sawaka had reviewed it on their end. He just had 2 minor comments. One was extending this and providing a detail for the retaining wall, which is why we had revised plans submitted last week. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions the commission may have.
Okay, so TJ, when we were talking on the site, you were adding the back walkway and the back retaining wall to support the walkway. And the question was raised on what impact the stormwater did that have in the rain garden that was back there as you were encroaching into that. How did what did the final calculations come out on that?
So when we had actually submitted this notice of intent, I had rerun all of the stormwater calculations to include that loss of the minimal area for the basin. So the stormwater report and all the drainage calculations represent the basin as is proposed versus not what was previously approved. So it was a very minimal change in the basin storage.
Okay. And status of site plan review at the planning board, where are you at on that?
Pending any other review comments, which I don't anticipate, as like I said, the 2 comments we had from their peer review engineer was to provide a detail for the retaining wall and extend that southerly walkway by a couple feet. I'm hoping that we get the minor modification approval tomorrow.
Okay. All right, questions from the members. TJ, any questions for TJ on this matter?
Nope, all good.
Okay, thank you, TJ.
Yep.
Woody, any questions on this one for TJ?
No, I don't have any questions for TJ. We will see him tomorrow night at the planning board. He's on the agenda.
Okay, Mick, any questions on this one?
No questions from me, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, I have no questions on this one either. Are there any raised hands from the public at this time? I don't see any, but everyone take a look for me. I have more stuff on my screen here than
I don't see any.
Okay.
Don't see any.
All right, do any members have a request for a site visit, additional information, plan amendment, or adding additional content to the notice of intent?
Nope.
Okay, hearing none. I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Mick. Okay, roll call, all in favor. TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes aye. All right, so team, at this time, this is when we would entertain any special conditions to be incorporated with a vote on an order of conditions. Mason, do you have any comments or any special conditions you want to add to this
No,
beyond we normally, okay.
no additional special conditions.
Okay, Mick, anything you think we should be adding? Pretty thorough submittal.
Yeah, no, I think it's a thorough submittal. I don't have any additions, no.
Okay, Woody, how about yourself? Anything
No,
that you
no
want to add?
addition. Thank you.
Okay. TJ, anything
Nope,
you want to add?
good.
All right, I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 3 Newburyport Turnpike with the usual conditions. Roll call, all in favor? TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes,
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes aye. So TJ, as you know, we've been asking applicants or the consultants to submit a draft order of conditions.
Yes, yeah, I had submitted one to Mason a couple weeks ago after
Oh,
our
okay.
sidewalk.
Okay, great.
And just for the commission, I kind of mirrored it based on the previous order of conditions, so a lot of the same conditions that were imposed at that point are in this one as well.
Okay, yeah, I'll review it. We can, if it's in order, we'll add the signatures and get those out forthwith to you.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, next order of business is a continued public hearing, notice of intent, DEP file number 050-1437, 46B Cottage Road, demolition, removal existing residential structure, followed by construction of a new 3-bedroom, single-family residential structure on a full foundation and other associated site improvements. Associated site improvements include new septic tank, pump chamber installation, a new paved driveway, reconnection to existing utility services. Mason, can you give us an overview where we are on this one?
Yeah, I was able to check out the site. Like you said, demolition, entire reconstruction. It's in the riverfront area. I believe they still need to delineate the top of the bank, and have that flagged. And there was some additional comments and questions, but I can bring those up after the presentation if those aren't answered.
Okay, yeah, Matt, are you doing the presentation on this?
Yes, can everybody hear me okay?
Yep,
Yes.
just identify yourself, Matt, just for the record.
Absolutely. So Matt Steinau with Millennium Engineering, here tonight representing the applicant, James Bork Construction, for his application before the commission. As was described by Mason, it's a demolition of the existing residential home and then the reconstruction of a new single-family residential home, essentially in the same place. What we have here on the screen now is the existing conditions. You can see the house here to be removed is an existing 2-bedroom home. Because the existing septic system was sized for 2 bedrooms, the proposed structure that we show on sheet 2 is also, it is a proposed 3-bedroom home because the system was sized for 3 bedrooms. So we have a problem where the existing tanks that are there today are in the way of where the new structure is going. And so as part of the project that we're showing here is the installation of 2 new tanks, a septic tank and a pump chamber, and then the reconnection to that existing force main that goes up to the leach field here now. As you saw on sheet 1, we have a structure that sits 73.8 feet from the rear lot line, here shown here with the dimension, and the proposed structure is at 79.2. So we are essentially pulling it back about 6 feet to the front base of this here, so pulling it away from the river. And then the actual home itself is even further back than that because there's like a farmer's porch that kind of wraps around the side of the house here. With the construction of the new garage and the orientation of the driveway, there's an extension of the existing paved surface. You can see when I zoom in here, there's an existing paved driveway that comes onto the property now. And then beyond that, it was gravel where the pavement took the turn and went to the neighbor's property. From there, it extended as gravel originally. We're proposing to pave that and to have a little hammerhead turnaround for the cars backing out to be able to make the turn and pull out in a very comfortable way. There's no major site grading of any kind proposed on this whatsoever. It's essentially keeping the site grades exactly as they are, removing the old structure and constructing a new one on a full foundation at an elevation here at 16.8 for the top of the foundation. The floodplain we show on the plan, along with all the buffer zones here. We have ACEC, area of critical environmental concern, just off the edge of the embankment here, as well as we identified the mean high, mean low, and all the various elevations related to the river itself. So the structure is outside of the floodplain, outside of the actual river embankment, outside of the resource area that's delineated as salt marsh, and all of the work is taking place essentially within the buffer zone of those resource areas, but entirely within the resource area for riverfront. We do show the limit of the 100-foot riparian zone here cutting through the middle of the home. And so the majority of the garage and a portion of the actual residential living space is outside of 200 feet, where a portion of the interior living space and the deck that wraps around is all within the inner 100-foot riparian zone. And again, you can see that on sheet 1, the intent here is to try to take up the majority of the space of the existing home. It is expanding in the direction of the side property line. Right now, that structure is 27.1 feet from the side lot line, and the proposed structure is going to be 11.9 feet. So it's coming over about 15 feet in that direction towards the side lot line. On sheet 2, we do have an impact table up here. We'll zoom into that. So in this table here, you can see what the existing site removal is. We have approximately 1,064 square feet of residential structure coming out, an additional 1,461 square feet of existing gravel driveway that's coming out, and for a total impact removal of 2,525 square feet. Proposed site improvements include the new residential structure, which is 2,875 square feet, and then the paved driveway of 1,816 square feet for a total proposed impact going back in of 4,691 square feet. We've identified the riverfront areas shown on the plan. It has a total riverfront area of 16,000 square feet, with a breakdown of the portions of the property that are within the inner riparian and outer riparian. For the 10% calculation for the lot being 1,677 square feet. So you can see we are exceeding that with the proposed, but we are under the 5,000 square foot. And the majority of that, again, is within areas that are already impacted. That's the driveway, the gravel driveway, and the actual structure that's there now. So those inner riparian impacts are shown here. So the net increase on the inner riparian of 231 square feet for the structure. Again, within footprints of other impacts, and then the outer riparian is where the majority of the impacts take place. The increase is a total of 1,992 square feet in that portion of the outer riparian. Sheet 2 of the plan set does show some construction details and calculations for the existing septic tanks that are going to be replaced. So we have pump calculations here that are related to Board of Health approval, as well as tank details. A detail for the erosion control. We're proposing entrenched silt fence. And I'll go back to sheet 2 in a moment and show you where those are being proposed. And then we also provide a architectural profile of the structure. And in this case here, you can see keep moving the pictures of everybody out of the way. Here you can see that the base flood elevation for this area here is a zone AE with an elevation of 13, with the mean ground being at 15.5. So we're 2.5 feet above the floodplain elevation, with the living space of this being up at 16.8 for top of foundation. And the rest of this is related to zoning as far as zoning heights and showing conformance with the 35-foot limit on the height of the structure. And again, I'll go back to sheet 2. On sheet 2, we have a line identified here as EC for erosion control. And so we're essentially completely encompassing the area of the work to make sure that there's no impact to the resource areas of any kind being proposed. And I believe that is essentially it. I know we've presented once before the commission and we didn't get a chance to really delve into it. So I'm looking forward to any questions the commission has, and I'm happy to take those now.
Okay, Matt, there was some technical comments that recently popped up on the portal for this filing.
I did see that. I didn't catch it until the end of the day yesterday, but I did pick it up, and I'm just switching screens here. Did the screen switch for you guys as well, or just me?
No, not yet.
For us.
This is the DEP portal, and so I did see here that it talks about the work being described as adjacent to Coastal Bank. And so we did identify that as we have a tidally influenced, the Parker River right there, tidally influenced, and we have clearly an embankment there, so we have Coastal Bank. And then it does say that they want some type of a cross section of it, and for that to be delineated. We can add that to the plan if the commission, feels that that's necessary. I think the important thing here is that the work is further away from the river than what's there. So we didn't feel that it was necessary at the time of the submission to go through an in-depth analysis of that particular embankment there. As no work's being proposed on it, and we're moving what work we are proposing further away. But if the commission wants to see that, we can definitely, do a cross section of that there and delineate the edge of the top of the embankment.
Okay, questions from the members? Mary, questions for Matt on this filing?
Yes, so a number of things. Yes, the DEP comments first, they're gonna wanna see a transect. And they're gonna wanna see the coastal bank delineated. If you put the plan back up, your top of coastal bank is most likely gonna fall right near where your erosion control boundary is shown there. At the top of the slope, where the break is. I'm guessing it's gonna fall right about there. So you'll need to adjust
On
your buffer
elevation
zone.
15.
Yeah, roughly 15, right? It might skip down to the 14 on the north side there, but that's why you put, you have one or two transects perpendicular to the slope and use the DEP guidance document for identifying what the top of the slope, where the break and slope where it ceases to be greater than 4:1. I think you probably have done that before.
Yeah.
And yeah, so you need to adjust the buffer zones accordingly once you do that. And then the other thing is just, are you reusing the foundation or any part of the original structure?
No part of the original structure will be reused there. They'll be reusing the footprint. So the whole foundation hole will be expanded for the new foundation.
So you'll use some of the old foundation, or would you have to take it out and start from scratch?
We'd be taking it out and starting from scratch.
Okay, so it's new construction, essentially. So my question is about how you are complying with the riverfront regulations, because there are two different ways of going at it. One is a redevelopment and one is new development. And it seems like how you're presenting this is a combination of both. And so for redevelopment of a previously developed riverfront area, you have to show an improvement to existing conditions, and you can't exceed the total area of work. Right under their normal riverfront regs, you can't build within 100 feet of the river. You have to leave it undisturbed. So you're proposing to work within the 100-foot riverfront area, but pulling it back, but you're also increasing the overall footprint in the 100-foot riverfront area, it looks like. So there's a disconnect here in the regulations and how this is complying with it. So I think it would be helpful if on the table that you show of table of impacts, if you have side-by-side comparison of existing and proposed, so that we can see under existing conditions, what is that area of impact in the 100-foot and 200-foot riverfront area compared with what you're proposing, to be able to evaluate whether there's an improvement to existing conditions significant enough to allow this to proceed under the redevelopment provisions, or if you're proposing this as a new development with the 5,000 square feet and 10%, which you mentioned, that doesn't have to do with redevelopment. So it just looks like you're mixing the two, because under a new development, and you're not using any of the foundation, you have to do an alternatives analysis, and you have to look at other areas on the lot where this could be built that were further away from the river in compliance with the regulations. So I think there's just a little bit of more evaluation that needs to happen in order to demonstrate that this actually complies with the riverfront regs one way or another, whichever way you're gonna go. So,
Side by side comparison of all the impacts, or are you talking about?
identify whether or
just
not
trying-
you're filing under the redevelopment standards or the new development standards. Because that makes a difference on how we look at this. And two, under your table of impacts, yes, to have a column with proposed and column with existing, so we can compare directly what was there and what are you proposing to do.
All right, now I think I understand. I guess my original question was more along the lines if you were looking for a comparison of like the volume of the structure within the buffer to show that it's not being expanded, or if it was more of an overall impact comparison showing, you know, everything within it. And it sounds like you want the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to visualize this if you showed the existing structure within this proposed footprint, you know, crosshatched as well. Then you could see where you were pulling it back, and and whether it's wider, in that 100-foot riparian zone.
We can absolutely do that.
Yeah, but like I said, you got to use one or the other, and it makes a huge difference in whether or not we got to look at the rest of the lot, and whether there's another place to put this structure on the lot that's outside of the riverfront area, then we have to do that. If you want to do it under the redevelopment standards, you can't make it conditions any worse than under current conditions, and you have to then show improvements. And I think, minor, a couple foot difference in where you are on the riverfront area is not really that's not what was intended. You need to show some significant improvements, either stormwater, enhancement plantings, something else, to meet the requirements of the redevelopment provisions. So.
That's good.
Matt, you had a table on the previous sheet. Could you go back to that?
Yes. On this sheet here, the existing conditions is a zoning table.
Okay, but no, there was another one that was showing the square footage.
Yep,
Yeah.
he had that, but it wasn't directly
Okay.
related to the existing plan.
Yeah. Okay, just walk me through this. For some reason, this removal existing structure. So that's the existing structure is 1,064 square feet. Existing gravel driveway to be removed. Okay, so that's removal of it. That's you're eliminating impacts there with those two, that number, correct?
That's correct. I think what
Don't
Mary
know
may
where.
be hinting at is more down here where the inner riparian impacts are broken
Okay.
out. So
Mhm.
we have the existing here with the proposed below it, and in more of a table format, that might make it a little clearer. But I think this is with the number that we're looking at here to see that there's an increase in the volume, or the footprint of the structure within the inner riparian, and that should probably be minimized, so that way it's at least neutral. It's no larger of an increase. If not, if making it better and showing an improvement, I think that's what Mary. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Mary, but I think that's what you were asking for.
Yeah, like correct. Because otherwise, if you don't do the redevelopment, then you can't be within 100 feet of the river at all. So if you're keeping the structure where it is and you're applying under the redevelopment standards, then the 10% 5,000 square feet doesn't really come into play. It's not making conditions worse, and plus showing improvements. And they can't just be token, it has to be a significant improvement.
So it looks to me like we're almost there in balancing that number. It wouldn't take much more to move the structure to get that to balance or to show an improvement there. And then we could look at other improvements that might push us over that token improvement that you might be considering that to be, with vegetation and stormwater and stuff like that. So it's just looking at those. I think I completely understand what you're asking for.
Okay,
Okay, I'll circle back, Mary.
thanks.
Okay, TJ, any questions from Matthew on this one?
Well, I have a question for Mary, a technical question. What determines which way this goes as far as a redevelopment or new development one? Is it the applicant that determines it, or is it the actual proposal of where the house is and
Yeah, the applicant will decides which set of rules they want to design to.
okay, but then,
Project,
so
yeah.
if they use the redevelopment, they have to leave the house where it was.
They can't go any closer to the river than existing conditions and plus an improvement. So they
Okay.
have a
So
little
they-
bit
they
of
just can't- They got a little,
tiny, right, they're set back a tiny bit more from the river, not much. But they're also increasing the amount in the 100-foot riverfront area by
understood.
a couple hundred square feet. So
Yeah, okay,
that's not gonna fly. Yep.
that's
Yep.
fine. Yep, so no other questions then.
Mhm.
Yeah. And Mary, just again for qualification, if the structure was totally removed, redevelopment wouldn't be in play if there wasn't an existing structure on this property.
Correct. You can't, you
Okay.
can only do redevelopment if there's a previously developed degraded area, right?
Okay, TJ, anything else?
No,
Okay, thank you, TJ. Woody, any questions for Matthew on this one?
I actually have a question for Mary as well. So, clarification. So
Training seminar here tonight, Mary.
yeah, right.
the redevelopment, if they went under redevelopment here, they'd have to at least reuse the foundation, or they'd have to leave a wall up in the existing structure.
I don't think that you have to do that because it is previously developed. It's previous, it's the condition of the site at the time you take on the work. So you could build in the same footprint without the same foundation.
Without the same foundation.
Yeah.
But a new foundation, but it would have to be within the same footprint.
Yeah, it's not like whatever the Plum Island rules are for redevelopment. No, you can as long as you occupy the same disturbed area. So that's why it would be really helpful for him to show the existing house on this image. So you could see the overlay and
Okay.
where it hangs over the existing footprint of the existing house.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Yep.
That's enough. And my other question would be for TJ. No, I'm sorry, Matt. The existing garage, that's not gonna be removed. That's gonna stay.
That's correct. You can see here, this is the proposed conditions and the garage is still there. So we have no intention of modifying or removing that structure.
Okay, thank you. I'm good, Bob, with questions. or
Okay,
comments.
thank you, Woody. Mick, any questions on this matter for Matthew?
none from me at this time, but great
Okay.
education, Mary. Thank you.
Class is over.
Yeah, all right, so just to do a recap, Matthew, you're clear on what Mary's looking for. And you have clarity on what the technical comments for DEP came in at?
I am. I do have one further question to ask, Mary. I'll put you back on the hot seat. So the question about the cross section for DEP to show the top of the first observable break, which I agree with, I think is going to be right up here near elevation 15.
Yep.
You said to adjust the buffers, but the riverfront is not based on the embankment of a coastal bank, correct? Or is that a separate buffer zone you want to
Yeah,
see?
it'll be a separate buffer zone.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, right now you're showing a buffer zone to the salt marsh. I think. Your limit of 100-foot wetland buff, 100-foot wetland buffer, it says, right, goes through your proposed garage.
Should probably be reworded to say salt marsh
That's
buffer.
50. That's 50. You've got a 50 and 100-foot. Yep. And instead of, you can just take those out and move it landward with the buffer zones to the coastal bank and just use the landward-most buffer zones.
Okay.
Does that make
Understood.
sense? Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any questions at this time, Matthew. Are there any raised hands from the public at this time? anyone would like to speak, just give us your name and address. Okay, hearing none. So Matthew, I'm anticipating you're going to request a continuance on this matter?
Yeah, 2-week continuance should be plenty of time.
Okay, so we'll continue it to the first meeting of November. What is that, November 5th?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing at the applicant's request to November 5th.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second,
Okay. Okay, roll call. All in favor. Mary,
yes.
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, thank you, Matthew. Are you going to be around for the next one, Old Point?
So I'll be representing that one as well.
Okay. So next matter is the continued public hearing on DEP file number 050-1435-2-8 Old Point Road. Applicant proposes to remove one existing landscape boat feature to permit one previously installed 8x20 temporary structure shown on the plans as a mobile merge container and to complete installation of previously approved planting in various alternative locations and species. Prior plantings have been approved as part of DEP file number 0501344. So Matt, why don't you give us an update where that's at? Or Mason, do you have any update on this before we go to Matt? Or
No comments. We can go to Matt.
okay, Matt, why don't you give us a refresher where we're at on this?
All right, so again, Matt Steino from Millennium, representing the applicant. Vincent Godin, he was here at the last meeting. I don't see him on tonight, but we can proceed. We looked at the comments that we got from DEP and from the commission at the last public hearing. There was concerns about the mobile merch shed that's shown here on sheet 2, being on the grade and whether or not it should be considered a temporary structure and whether it needed to comply with the dune performance standards. And it was suggested that putting it on a cinder block, footing would get it up off the ground and allow the movement of wind, water, and sand. So that note has been added to the plan here to replace that grade on a cinder block footing. The comments we most recently got back from DEP are related to these planting areas here or dune sand structures here along the corner. Just to remind the commission, the intent of this application here is to actually essentially reactivate an expired permit. So this is showing exactly what was on the original permit plan. It's essentially a 1.5 to 2 foot mound of sand here in the corner. And I think what DEP is looking for is just clarification that that's the intent is just to be about 2 feet up, 2 feet of mounded dune sand with the plantings added to that. I have no problem adding some, contour elevations on you. It's a struggle at this scale, so I may have to pull it off and show it as a detail off to the side. But we can identify the fact that this is essentially an 18-inch to 24-inch dune structure along this corner. I don't believe there was any other significant comments from the commission at the last meeting. The plantings that we have in here are representative of plantings that were on the prior approval in the same quantities. And the only real, I think, outstanding issue was that, and then a impervious surface comparison was asked for. And so we added that table up here in the corner, where you can see in this table, you get what the existing roof structures were, pavement, concrete pads, brick paver stones, total impervious area on the site prior to construction commencing with the original permit. Then we had what was proposed, and the net change resulted in a reduction of 13,292 square feet of impervious area. That was a part of the original approval. Millennium went out and did an updated survey in 2024. We've compared those numbers here to what we found to be on site at this time and what that net change was from the approval, what was proposed, to what's there now. So you can see in the case of the roof, there's an additional 434 square feet of roof structure there today over what was approved. There is an additional 60 square feet of pavement that was there from what was approved. And then we have the reductions. We have a net reduction in a concrete pad of 275 square feet that was intended to stay in as part of the original approval. And then the paver stones, those were all new and those were added. So net reduction all the way straight down. We have a total increase of about 219 square feet over the original approval. So it's very close to what was there, but it's still a substantial decrease over what was there prior to the approval being put in place. What the existing was much higher at 19,716, and what we found there today is 6,643 square feet. So pretty much a 13,000 square foot reduction in the overall impervious area on the site. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Mary, questions for Matthew on this?
You're muted, Mary.
Does that include the tank? Was there
Tank.
the pad, is there a pad supporting the above ground gas tank?
So there's not a pad, there's a wall. And so what they did was
Just
they
a
put
wall?
it inside, yeah, they put it inside a wall that's here. And the size of that wall is substantially smaller than the size of the wall that was originally proposed in this area where they had seating. As I told the applicant, I said, I'm not really sure how the wall was approved before. They don't typically allow walls, but there was a
Yeah, like
very
on this-
large
Yeah,
wall here that was not put in. So this is substantially smaller than that.
okay. But you're not counting that propane tank as part of the impervious, I would assume.
That's correct,
tank
because
with the
it's,
wall,
it's,
yeah.
it's
you-
pervious
it could
below it
as-
because rainwater needs
Yeah.
to get out of it.
Got it, okay. And that includes all of the, that's all the questions I have for right now, Bob.
Okay, yeah, I'll circle back, Mary. TJ, any questions for Matthew on this?
Yep, no, I'm good.
Okay, Woody, any questions for Matthew? And Woody, where are they at in the planning board here with site plan review? Just curious.
To be honest with you, I don't know. I think we were waiting, on conservation to weigh in on.
Matthew, is that your recollection on this? Just
That's correct. We had, I think, a joint site walk originally with the commission and the planning board, and the direction we got from the town planner at the time was that they did not want us to come back before them until we had worked out the changes with the conservation commission. So we have not officially applied to go back before them.
okay. Woody, anything else for Matthew at this time?
On the table where it says 219. Would that basically be credited to the merch trailer? You come up with that number
Well,
for-
that is part of the increase from the roof. So what we found was they had the merch shed that wasn't originally approved. Had a square footage of roof, and then directly next to the merch shed, there was kind of a little bar area that was built on top of the deck, and that had a little bit increased roof area on that deck. So the combination of the merch shed and that little bar is what equals the increase in the roof area.
Okay, and that's the only question I have for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Woody. Mick, any questions for Matthew on this?
No questions from me right now, Bob. Thank you.
Okay. And so one of the questions that came up at the last meeting, Matthew, was the elevation of the merch shed and what FEMA guidelines may be in play with that. And the merch shed is considered a temporary structure by the building inspector, and it's not habitable. And as I recall, FEMA guidelines are first habitable floor have to be a certain base elevation above base flood elevation, which would not apply to this structure as it's not habitable. Is that your understanding of that? Am I citing that correctly?
I believe so, because I think that's the same standard they apply to 10 by 10 shed or something like that. If it's not habitable, then it's just doing performance standards. Yeah, we really worry about not the FEMA regs.
Okay. All right, Mary, I'm going to circle back to you, and before I open this up to public comment.
So what is how high is it elevated above grade then? Because obviously if it doesn't need to comply with FEMA regulations for elevation, it does need to comply with dune standards. So is it 1 foot or how much is it?
We've been requiring a cinder block, I guess an 8-inch cinder block, Mary, has been
Okay.
kind of what we've been doing just to have something, again, where it's a temporary structure, it's there today, it
Yep.
could be
So it's
there,
roughly, that's what I'm trying to understand
Yeah.
is, I mean, I guess when you bury it, when you put it in the sand, 1 cinder block could be 4 inches after you put the building on top of it. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to understand how much it's elevated.
I was there actually this weekend, and it's up probably about 6 inches on the cinder block that it's on now.
Okay, all right, good.
And okay.
Yeah, and then the last thing I had was on the bioretention areas. I think TJ had mentioned at the last meeting that those were not constructed to size. Is that now proposed to be corrected?
At this time here, the consensus is with the engineers that they don't function the way they originally intended. For instance, and I'll show you the one up here. In this particular area, there was supposed to be a like a hard packed gravel that was put in here, and the thought was that some of the runoff from that would get into a biodetention area here. Well, they didn't end up doing the hard packed gravel. What we have is just basically clean wash stone that was placed in this area here, so it's much more pervious. And this area, because they had to install these hardened structures, the sewer manhole cover that was found, and the other manhole covers here, there is no real way to put one in this area. So what the applicant is asking of the commission is with the considerable reduction in impervious surface that was originally part of this plan, that there's still a significant improvement to the environment here, and that this one should not have to be constructed because it wouldn't function correctly. The water wouldn't get in there, and it's not designed to receive runoff from the roof of the structure. We had a net reduction of another large concrete pad that was, originally shown here. And so a combination of these features, the removal of the pad and the change over to a regular gravel material here, we felt was enough to justify why this biodetention area didn't need to be constructed. The one further down in this area is constructed. It's a little smaller than what was originally intended, but it was intended to receive runoff from this paved area. And that just doesn't happen. The water comes in, it gets into this kind of, grass, area, planted area here between the fence and the paved surface, and it soaks into the ground here before it ever gets here. As a matter of fact, the plants in this particular area aren't receiving enough water to really act as a true rain garden. So the letter we produced basically said that we felt that it wasn't necessary to actually have the rain gardens to perform the functions that they were intended because they weren't functioning correctly. And that letter was sent to Joe Sawaka in anticipation of filing with the planning board and just to get his opinion on it, make sure he agreed, and he had no issues with it at that time.
Yeah, I understand it's difficult when you're dealing with sand to get direct stormwater. So, but I'm also trying to understand how this complies with DEP stormwater regs, which you're not exempt from. So at least for some treatment, I understand it's your land subject to coastal storm flowage, so we're not talking about peak rate attenuations or anything like that, but how you can that swale be grassed and call that a bioretention swale or something? Is there some way of meeting that standard? I don't quite understand.
Mary, let me do this for 1 second. If I could get everyone's attention, could you all please mute? We're getting a little background interference from somebody at this point. So okay, thank you, Frank. All right, excuse me, Mary, go ahead, continue, please.
That was my point. I just, I guess the town is relying on Joe Sawaka for the stormwater review, and he doesn't have an issue. I'm just raising the question, like, it doesn't appear to comply with the DEP stormwater regs, so, which is part of our review.
Matt, what is
No,
the total area of the site? What is the square footage of the site?
The site, the whole site.
Yeah.
I don't think it's big enough to comply to trigger this town stormwater bylaw.
Right, yeah, no, that was one of my questions.
You know, I
Mary,
think
so
it's less than an acre.
Okay,
I don't have the total area here listed. I'd have to pull it up on the tax card quickly if you wanted me to do that. Because we weren't proposing any new structures, we didn't add a zoning table to this particular plan.
right. Yeah, no, the question is our stormwater bylaw is an acre of disturbance or more would trigger that, and Plum Island does fall within that waters of the United States. But again, you're
It's
not,
less than an acre.
yeah, but you're not disturbing a full acre because you have existing pavement that's existing
Yeah.
grades that haven't changed. Okay,
DEP relies on the project type more than the size.
right. Well, just one other level of jurisdiction that
Yeah.
we can eliminate
Mhm.
for this. Okay, anything else, Mary, at this point?
No, thank you.
Okay. TJ, I'm gonna go around one more time and then we'll open it up to the public. TJ, any follow-up questions for Matt on this?
No, not at this point, no.
Okay, Woody, any follow-up questions for Matt on this project?
No, I'm good. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, Mick, any follow-up questions on this?
No questions from me, Bob. Thank you.
Yep. And for me, no follow-up questions for me. I mean, when I look at the net reduction to the site, pull that table up again, Matt, just because I wanted to be accurate. Yeah, so a net reduction of 13,000 square feet of impervious is a substantial amount.
From the original gas station there.
Yeah, from the combined structures and the paved area and the, okay, I have no further questions. I'm gonna open this up to the public. I see Steve Manchin. Steve, just give us your name and address and ask your questions to Matt that you have.
Certainly, Mr. Chair, thank you for the chance to comment. This is Steve Manchin on 14th Street, Plum Island. A couple things. The placing of the merchandise container above ground, I think, is a market improvement, and I'm glad to see that happening. I do wonder if one cinder block is enough, given the potential for flooding in the area, and that's a question I would turn back to the commission to decide whether it's sufficient, given the propensity for high water in that area. I am particularly concerned about raising that since I believe there's an electrical service to the merchandise container and whether that introduces additional concerns which may or may not be under the purview of the commission, but I just wanted to raise that as something to consider if it does fall under your purview. I still find myself scratching my head a little bit about the idea that this being a mobile temporary structure. It's one thing to declare it mobile, it's one thing to declare it to be temporary, but I'm not sure what the criteria are to make that determination, particularly given that if there were severe flooding expected again, like there were in January, how would the mobility issue be addressed in real time by the applicant? And again, maybe that's solely an issue for the building inspector, but if it does fall under the purview of the Conservation Commission, I'd like to see some discussion about, what the plan is to move the structure, given its electrical hookup, to higher ground. I know that the mobile kitchen is meant to have some provisions for moving it to higher ground, and that involves not only electrical, but gas. And I'm not suggesting we go back and look at the mobile kitchen at this time, but really want to point out that there are provisions, I hope, to talk about when the mobility option must be exercised. Leaving that behind, I believe the applicant is no longer talking about the pavilion, which at one time was being proposed for the site. I know the Zoning Board of Appeals approved a pavilion going in, but I'm wondering if the discussion about roof coverage of the site needs to entertain some discussion about the pavilion as a future structure. Again, I'm not at all sure of the answer of that, but I just want to call it to the attention of the commission that right now a pavilion is not being proposed, but what if it is? How does that enter into your deliberations? And finally, if the corner of Old Point and Plum Island Boulevard is going to have some sort of raised dune area or vegetation, I'm wondering how that affects the sight lines. I know that it can be a little bit tricky if you're trying to particularly make a turn off of Old Point Road, either going east or west onto Plum Island Boulevard. And perhaps the applicant can just talk about that a little bit more so that we have good sight lines that do not create a hazard. And with that, I'm done. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Steve, refresh me. I'm just taking some notes here on your comments. After you were talking about the merch shed on the electrical in the building, whether it was, how is it determined to be temporary or what have you? On the electrical, again, it becomes the domain of the electrical inspector on that for the obvious. And the same, we rely on the building inspector's determination on what's temporary, what's permanent. And then we go from there. But you had one other point, and I'm sorry, I'm having a senior moment that you made that I just wanted to make a notation of my own notes here.
Sightlines?
Yeah, no, the sightlines, your sightlines were more on the height of the berm that they're proposing to put in. Is that what you're talking about, Steve?
Yes, for that final comment. I think with regard to the merchandise shack, I think I'm even more senior than you are, Bob. But I think my comment had to do with if the determination is made that the merchandise shack is mobile and does that mean that we need a plan to address the mobility issue?
Well,
I think I framed it in terms of how.
that was it. That was it. Thank you, Steve. I think the mobile and temporary are two different terms. It's been deemed a temporary structure by the building inspector because I had verified that with him, and that's how we're treating it. The mobility of it is, I guess the owner could always remove a temporary structure at any time, whether it was for a flood or for they no longer want a merch shed or they're proposing something else that's different. And it doesn't require a permit to remove it from the building inspector, I guess is that's the definition that Peter had given me on how we determined, the applicability of whether it was a temporary structure or a permanent structure. So,
sure. And if I may, Mr. Chair, I think at the last meeting, I phrased it in terms of, the January floods, which were pretty extensive down there. As you may recall, what happened out at Sandy Way, for instance. And I appreciate that. And again, I'm not trying to revisit the kitchen, but in terms of mobility, I'm thinking that there may need to be some sort of plan or trigger, because certainly during the height of the floods, when the Plum Island Turnpike was closed, if there were a more serious threat being posed, one couldn't get, a tractor down there to move, the kitchen, for example, or the merchandise shed. So again, I don't know whether such a plan would be under the purview of the commission. But that was one of the other points that was related to mobility, both at the last meeting and now this meeting.
Yeah. So Stephen, from our local bylaw, I don't recall that we have a section that covers mobility. And Mary, I'm unfamiliar if the WPA has such an application as well.
No.
So I guess we don't have jurisdiction because it isn't either in our bylaw or in the WPA. And that's the guidance that we go by. But we still we piggyback with what the electrical code requires and certainly what the building inspector determines, you know, what the structure is, but. So let me stop there and let me have Matt, Matt, do you want to respond to any of Steve's comments?
So when it comes
I-
down to the am I good?
Yeah, you're good, Matt,
Okay.
excuse me.
When it comes down to the definition of mobility or temporary, as the chair indicated, that's more of a jurisdiction of the building inspector to determine whether or not it's mobile. I would suggest that because we are going to end up back in front of the planning board at some point, that they would be the more appropriate board to tackle whether or not a plan needs to be in place, and what that plan would entail, having the details of that spelled out as part of their approval. So I do feel that there's a possibility that there's definitely a board here that's more equipped to handle that particular discussion. As far as sight lines, I wanted to bring up this photo so that way the commission could see this. This is the current conditions, and we're talking about adding sand to the left side of this, and so they're kind of going along the road and back of this here. So you know, a 2 foot mound of sand is going to have no effect on the sight lines that isn't currently there today. With the way this corner is built out with the sign and the vegetation and the posts that are here now. So I don't feel like the re-implying the original approval, which had these sand features there, is going to further degrade sightlines here at all. I think you know, the sightlines we have today are the sightlines we're going to have tomorrow, and they won't change. I
Matt,
think that was the 3 questions.
Yeah, and Matt, the berm that we're calling, that was on the original site plan that was approved by the planning board as well.
It was.
Okay. All right, Steve, anything else before I move on?
You know, one final thing, I don't purport to understand the significance of roofs on buildings, but could you comment, perhaps Matt could comment some more about what the significance of, should a pavilion be proposed in the future, whether that would be something that would become a concern for the Concom. Again, I don't purport to understand fully the discussion that was occurring about the roofs on the site, but I just raise it as please inform me. And then I'm done. Thank you.
I forgot that you brought the pavilion. So what I can tell you and the rest of the public is that the applicant does intend to move forward with a project that would include a pavilion, but that would require us to come back to the Conservation Commission. We originally attempted to do that with the commission, and it was the commission's direction for us to take that off, kind of come back and reapply to get the old permit reactivated and deal with the discrepancies that were found when we did our as-built. And so that's what this permit does, is it will deal with those discrepancies, and it will reactivate the original approval and allow him to complete the work that he was supposed to do as part of the old permit. Once that's approved, we've been instructed that if we want to look at the pavilion, that we could then attempt to come back in and amend the permit, which would then require us to deal with the roof runoff and the stormwater from that, and the rest of the wetlands protection standards that would apply to that structure as well. So he does plan to come forward with something, but it will require a full review, a new, essentially an amended notice of intent, which will have new abutter notifications, and so that will go out, and there'll be a separate hearing to bring up that as a completely separate issue.
Okay. Thank you for that, and I defer to the commission. I'm done.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Are there any other members of the public that have a question or wanted to add comment at this time? Okay. Do any members have a request for additional information, plan amendment, or adding additional content to the notice of intent?
I just have one point that DEP in their technical comments for this project recommended the project proponent provide a sieve analysis for grain size comparison during the notice of intent process rather than prior to commencement of work. And the plans should also be revised to show how high these raised dune features will be. I think I think we talked about them being only a couple feet high, the dune features, but there are these there are not topo, there's not topo here on this plan. But Matt, can you estimate, those are contour lines, so it's gotta be higher than 2 feet, I guess.
There's 6-inch lifts that they're showing here from the original
There's
plan,
6-inch
so
lifts, okay.
yeah, so this is about a 2-foot mound here, whereas we got about an 18-inch mound over here. This
Okay.
where it kind of tails off over here, we're down to around a foot. So I think we can add those numbers if the commission wants to
Probably
see
a
that, that's
note to the
fine.
plan that, those contours are represent half foot. Half foot contours or
This-
6 foot or 6-inch contours. So then you can estimate the height above grade.
Absolutely, yeah, because if
So-
these were 1-foot contours, that would be a 4 to 5 foot mound. and it
Yeah,
doesn't make
yeah,
sense to
exactly.
stand, wouldn't stay there.
Maybe just a note just that says max height or whatever, it's gonna be above grade. And as far as the sieve analysis goes, it's not been the commission's practice to require that as part of the notice of intent process. So I don't know about the rest of the members, but I'm comfortable in making that a special condition, but not requiring that be done as part of the notice of intent.
Yeah, no, I agree. And as I recall too, Mary, we have approved, Mason should have approved sand pits that meet the sieve analysis that we've been using. And so typically applicants or the contractors would be reaching out to the agent and getting pre-approval of that prior to. And there were 3, Bentley Warren had an additional pit that they were hauling from that met the sieve analysis.
Hampshire or something, yes.
Yeah, it was.
But I think a special condition that would
Yep.
state that whatever we used before for a special condition regarding
Yeah. So-
installation of sand.
So something provide sieve analysis to the agent prior to construction,
Mhm.
meeting
Compatible grain size with the
Yep.
beach.
meeting Newbury Conservation Commission standards.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, anything else, team?
Just that plan be noted with
Yeah,
the.
we're gonna
height
add
of the dune.
add a note to, plan to have a note on the depth of the contours as shown. Matt said they're 6 inches, so they'll just add that as a note. They'll add that as a special condition. And
Do you want
we-
to add something about the merge shed elevation, being,
that's on, I think it's already on the plan, what's showing it that it's on
Okay.
on a cinder block.
Okay.
Add it, okay. Okay, anything,
When we show the raised structure, I'm sorry, we show the raised sand beds here, we'll just add a note below it that says, this one here is 18 inches high, the one down here is 24 inches high. And that the contours, if you want, I can try to squeeze in numbers on those to make it very clear.
I think it'd be, yeah, okay. All right, anything else, team? Okay,
whatever other special conditions were in the original order of conditions.
here'll be a carryover.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, I will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay, second,
Second,
who was that, TJ?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so special conditions, one of them will be a carryover of previous special conditions on the expired order of conditions. Civil analysis to be presented to the agent prior to construction. And adding a note to the plan identifying the contours of the proposed dunes, of the proposed berms. Anything else we're thinking of?
Do we want to say anything about monitoring of the plantings so that they serve, there's a certain year guarantee?
Yeah, I think in our special conditions, it's a 2-year growing cycle.
Okay.
To make sure that that should be covered. It is covered by the, I'm gonna call it our usual conditions.
Special conditions, okay.
Yeah, our usual special conditions. Okay. All right, I will entertain a motion to issue an order of conditions for 2-8 Old Point Road with our usual conditions and the aforementioned special conditions.
so moved.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second,
Okay, roll call, all in favor. Mary,
Yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.
Okay, the next matter is DEP file number 050-1436, 286 High Road to construct an addition to an existing single-family dwelling with associated utilities and expanded driveway within the 100-foot buffer to Salt Marsh area. Mason, why don't you give us an update on this? You mentioned earlier they were asking for a continuance.
Yeah, Bill Hull had reached out, asking to continue to the next meeting.
Okay, well, team, then I'll entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to the November 5th meeting at the applicant's request.
So moved.
so, second,
TJ and Mary. Okay, roll call. All in favor, Mary,
yes,
TJ,
Aye.
Woody,
Yes.
Mick,
Aye.
and Bob Connors votes yes. Okay, team, that is it. It is now 8:56 PM, and I'll entertain, Mason, unless you have some content you want to share with the commission.
No news right now.
Okay,
No updates.
all right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
second,
Okay, all in favor, Mary, TJ,
Yes.
Woody,
Aye.
Mick,
Yes.
and Bob Connors. All right, thank you, everyone. Great meeting tonight, got a lot done. Janice, did you have anything you wanted to add? Just you're part of the
just watching.
Newbury Newbury Conservation Fan Club. All right,
Just saying hi and, you know, seeing as how the Old Point Road is important to me too, so.
yeah, no, it's one island with 2 zip codes. That's what we always say out here.
Oh, yeah.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a great
Good night.
day.
Thanks, bye.
Good night.
Welcome, Frank.